Chapter 552. Operation to divide the loot 15. However, towards they who were the main culprits, he would absolutely not hold back. Who asked them to snatch those source stones? When the time comes, Nangong's anger would be unleashed on their bodies. Seeing that Bei Qinying's facial expression was full of grief, a trace of guilt flashed through Su Luo's heart. But this trace of guilt was quickly replaced by her feeling of excitement. You should be at ease. How could I possibly lose? Su Luo patted his shoulders, expressing complete confidence in herself. Didn't I tell you? Inside here, all the source stones have crystal stones in them, absolutely no mistake about it. When I handle things, you should feel assured. However, like this, Bei Qinying felt his mood become even worse. Because if she won, all these source stones on the ground would belong to her. They would be considered having wasted their efforts in vain. He really gave himself a difficult problem. Whether it was a win or lose, he would be tangled up. When Bei Qinying was in the middle of being full of remorse, the cutting of the source stones had begun. The order of cutting source stones was simple. The two sides would each bring out a source stone, and it would be recorded after being cut out. Then the second piece, the third piece, until finally, it was done and the score accumulated. The first piece, with regards to one's reputation, was very important. As a result, Wang Zhongkue looked again and again, picked again and again. Finally, he chose a piece of source stone with great difficulty, and handed it over to a master that specialized in cutting source stones to cut it open. On Su Luo's side, it was much simpler. Because in her chest full of source stones, all of them had crystal stones. Randomly grabbing one would result in a crystal stone. Naturally, Wang Zhongkue selected very carefully. Su Luo, on the other hand, blindly grabbed one. Watching and comparing the two of them, Bei Qinying again shook his head nonstop. However, the result after cutting the source stones made others feel taken aback. Jade Lake Faction. Cyan Crystal Stone Beichen Faction. Cyan Crystal Stone. At this moment, all the gazes were staring at Su Luo. Each and every one of them, without exception, had an unimaginable expression of disbelief. She randomly grabbed a source stone, and it contained a crystal stone. This was not much, but the most unimaginable thing was that it happened to be a cyan-colored crystal stone, which was among the high grades of crystal stone. It was just luck. Su Luo said with an indifferent smile. Everyone nodded their heads. It was indeed luck, otherwise, how could randomly grabbing one result in a cyan crystal stone's appearance? However, this luck was rather too. However, the next thing that happened startled everyone until their chins all dropped to the floor. If they say that Su Luo's luck was good, then her luck was truly, extremely, good. This was simply a rhythm that defied the natural order. Cutting 3 times in a row, Su Luo's 3 times were all green crystal stones, not a single empty one. In contrast, the newly promoted king of crystal stones cut 3 times, and only cut out a single yellow crystal stone. The remaining 2 were waste products. Even so, if his achievements were brought outside, the rate of 2 to 1 of getting crystal stones, that was also very good from an impartial view. Who would have known he would unfortunately run into Su Luo? 4 stones in a row, her stones didn't cut out a single waste product, still resulted in a cyan crystal stone, and 3 pieces of green crystal stone. This kind of rhythm. Everyone was staring at Su Luo as if looking at a ghost. They simply could not believe this was real. If they hadn't seen Su Luo's appearance when choosing crystal stones, they would still barely be able to persuade themselves. But whenever they recalled Su Luo's bandit-like appearance when picking crystal stones, this was simply not possible. Li Aoqiong's complexion suddenly darkened, stiffening his back, clearly not in a very good mood. This is impossible, impossible. Li Aoqiong shook his head, completely not believing this was real. He turned and stared at Su Luo, his eyes sharp as ice blades. He always felt that there was something fishy, but asking him to speak, he was simply unable to spit it out. Su Luo spread out both hands, calmly and collectedly smiled. It's all luck, not at all surprising. Chapter 554. Operation to divide the loot 17. The third time, among the 10 pieces of source stones were 3 pieces of green crystal stones, and a piece of cyan crystal stone. A total of 2 pieces of cyan-colored crystal stones, 3 pieces of green-colored crystal stones, as well as 1 piece of yellow-colored crystal stone. As for Su Luo, that was a rhythm of 100 hits after 100 shots. The first time, without a doubt, was a cyan-colored crystal stone. The second time, a piece of cyan-colored crystal stone, in addition to 3 green-colored crystal stones. The third time, 2 pieces of cyan-colored crystal stones and 2 pieces of green-colored crystal stones. A total of 4 cyan-colored crystal stones and 5 pieces of green-colored crystal stones. The most crucial point rested on the fact that she cut 9 pieces of source stones, with 9 pieces all hitting the mark. Not even a single piece was waste material. Being unconvinced was simply entirely out of the question. Now the entire area's sights were all concentrated on Su Luo's person. Pairs after pairs of gazes, like searchlights, focused on her, so bright that it could dazzle a person's eyes. You cheated. Li Aoqiong's pair of cold eyes firmly stared at Su Luo, his gaze full of murderous intent. Without a doubt, she was cheating. Otherwise, even if the real king of crystal stones came, he also would not have such success. Li Aoqiong absolutely did not believe that a person relying completely on luck would reach this degree of defying the natural order. If luck was that reliable, then, what was the need for a master at gambling stones? The corner of Su Luo's mouth pulled slightly, unhurriedly casting him a glance. Cheating? Let me ask, how did I cheat? Does the young master Li want to personally demonstrate one time through? Li Aoqiong had always been the target of everyone's worship. When had he ever been taunted like this by another person? When had he ever been looked down upon by another's teasing and cynical gaze before? The anger in his heart increased explosively. Flustered and discomfited with fury, he said, "Little slut, you still dare to quibble." He actually dared to curse by calling her a little slut. A cold intent flashed through Su Luo's eyes. At this moment, she suddenly thought of a classic dialogue when cursing others. As a result, Su Luo carelessly cast him a glance. "Who are you cursing as a little slut?" "One little slut is cursing you." Li Aoqiong very furiously followed with the reply. Su Luo covered her mouth and smiled. "Little slut, what did you curse me as? Say it out loud for others to hear it." PFFFFFTT. Bei Chening was the first who was unable to bear it. A laughing sound came out. Ha 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 ha. He who was earlier as sorrowful like a classic beauty, Lan Xian, now covered his stomach. And without caring for appearances, he sat on a chair, slapping the table and laughing wildly. Li Aoqiong angrily pointed at Su Luo. That finger was shaking like a leaf due to his fury. Su Luo very innocently spread out both hands, on the contrary, earnestly began instructing him. The eldest young master Li is a very learned person. Why learn such a boorish, marketplace way of cursing? The key point being cursing another, but actually cursing yourself. Abominable. Li Aoqiong only felt the blood pressure was pulsating on his own forehead, soaring increasingly. He wished he could just rush up and dismember this loathsome girl in front of his eyes into 10,000 pieces. Li Aoqiong, this kind of arrogant and conceited person, his abilities in disputing during an argument was usually not superior. As a result, he was suppressed firmly by the clever and eloquent Su Luo. The eldest young master Li, why should you be this angry? Perhaps because you are about to lose. Therefore you are flying into a rage out of humiliation? Su Luo very contemptuously looked down on him. Li Aoqiong had, with great difficulty, suppressed his mood, but now his blood pressure was palpitating again and started soaring. However, he knew that he was wrong, so he didn't continue to pester endlessly. Su Luo cast Wang Zhongkui a contemptuous glance. Wait until you cut out a total of 4 pieces of cyan-colored crystal stones and 5 pieces of green crystal stones. Only then will I cut more stones. Finished speaking, Su Luo confidently and at ease turned around and agilely walked to her own side's procession, tossing Li Aoqiong and Wang Zhongkui aside. This kind of disregarding manner, if it was done before, how could the Li family's eldest young master swallow this? He would have already brushed her away with a wave of his sleeve and annihilated her ashes. But now his skills were not equal to theirs. What could he do? 1. This and the next 2 lines is the start of a joke playing on Chinese words where Su Luo called Li Aoqiong a slut. Can mean who are you cursing as a little slut or who is the little slut cursing at. Su Luo is playing with words here, using the second meaning after Li Aoqiong said that the little slut is cursing her being Su Luo, which makes Li Aoqiong is the little slut. Chapter 555. Relationship Crisis 1. Wang Zhongkui's heart was unsatisfied. As a result, he continued to cut source stones as if his life depended on it, attempting to cut out a super crystal stone. However, his good luck for today appeared to have been exhausted. In a single breath, he cut open all of the source stones he had picked. But what made him despair was that his luck changed dramatically. What he cut out, if it was not waste material, it was only red-colored crystal stones. He was not even able to touch even the corner of a single green-colored crystal stone. This was simply too hard for a person to believe. Li Aoqiong's complexion became more and more ugly, more and more stiff, until finally, it became the gloomy calm before a storm approaches. His impression towards this legendary expert at gambling stones immediately took a nosedive. This time, letting him lose such a huge amount of face, Li Aoqiong would definitely not let him off. Su Luo watched as Wang Zhongkui was busy and his forehead was filled with sweat. She merely smiled and remained silent. In fact, Wang Zhongkui was not an idiot and could be considered to have some strength. In the beginning, when Su Luo was borrowing the little divine dragon's eyes, he was given an opportunity to take advantage of. As a result, he grabbed a few good source stones. However, soon after, Su Luo started to frantically plunder the source stones. Seeing a good source stone, she would take it immediately, to the extent that all the good source stones were in Su Luo's hands. Wang Zhongkui could only pick from the source stones that Su Luo had discarded. If he was able to pick a good one, then it would be too mystical. As a result, further towards the end, the worse Wang Zhongkui's source stones would become. This was due to the fact that all the good source stones had already been cut open by him. Therefore, up to the end, he cut open 15 waste stones in succession. This kind of result simply made everyone speechless. The grand and newly promoted king of crystal stones unexpectedly cut open 15 waste stones in succession. If this news was to spread outside, wouldn't it make people laugh their heads off? Now, Wang Zhongkui's entire person had become foolish, staring blankly and stupidly at the original position like a dazed person. Li Aoqiong's eyes narrowed dangerously, his gaze staring at the pile of source stones that Su Luo had not yet cut open. This girl's behavior was weird, somewhat real and somewhat fake, profoundly mysterious. A person really couldn't make her out. In her pile of source stones, was it true that every piece had a high-grade crystal stone? Or just like Wang Zhongkui, all the good crystal stones had already been cut out? However, Wang Zhongkui had already lost. This loathsome girl clearly showed that she did not want to cut anymore. Very likely, this question would never be answered. Only Li Aoqiong really couldn't understand. Why would this loathsome girl's random picks be better than Wang Zhongkui's picks? Was it really only luck? His pair of serene and deep eyes stared dangerously at Su Luo, similar to a viper hiding inside the underbrush. It was serene, dark, sharp and sinister. Seeing this new king of crystal stones had already finished cutting all of his source stones. Only then did Su Luo pat her bottom and stand up, as if wishing to continue on. She did not speak a single word, only indifferently cast Li Aoqiong a glance. Her expression seemed heedless. This expression of playing down others' reputation made Li Aoqiong's complexion swell with redness, so red as if blood was able to drip out. Loathsome girl, don't be too arrogant. He secretly clenched his fists, his heart hatefully cursing. Eldest young Master Li, are you still dissatisfied with this conclusion? Su Luo happily smiled and asked. Full of self-satisfaction, she smiled, with an appearance really deserving of a good spanking. Humph. Li Aoqiong coldly snorted, brushed his sleeves and just wanted to leave. Hey, brotherly from our generation, if you agree on a bet, you must accept the loss. Could it be you can't afford to lose it? Beichening stretched out his throat to shout out, with an attitude of wishing the whole world to be in chaos. Lan Xian also reasonably did not spare him. Ah, brotherly from our generation, don't leave so quickly just yet, come and appreciate our house's crystal stones. Beichening and Lan Xian's words, without a doubt, were like hitting Li Aoqiong in the face. Li Aoqiong's foot immediately paused as he fiercely glared at the joyfully satisfied Bei Chenying and Lan Xian. Finally, he stared at Su Luo, then angrily threw down a sentence. Loathsome girl, if you have the time to make cynical remarks, it would be better to think about how to enjoy your final year's time. Chapter 556, Relationship Crisis 2, Su Luo laughed. Many thanks for your concern, eldest young masterly, but it seems that you have forgotten something. What? Li Aoqiong's voice was rough, his attitude extremely impatient. 1,000 pieces of green-colored crystal stones. Oh, the stately young master of the Li family. You wouldn't forget your debt after losing, right? Su Luo said with a smile, yet not a smile that was raised at the corner of her mouth, her eyes carrying a trace of careless laughter. Li Aoqiong's figure, in that split second, became completely motionless. Before, he and Nangong Luoyun made a wager. The one that lost would pay out 1,000 green-colored crystal stones. He was infuriated till the point of being muddle-headed by this loathsome girl, to actually forgot this matter. Not 10 pieces, nor 100 pieces, but rather 1,000 pieces of green-colored crystal stones. Just thinking about it made his flesh ache extremely painfully. Li Aoqiong's complexion, in 1 second, became bright then dark, unable to settle on being overcast or clear, simply extremely ugly. Seeing Li Aoqiong's complexion become ugly, Bei Chenying, without a trace of politeness, threw stones at him while he was down. Hey, brotherly from the same generation, could it be that the stately Jade Lakesley family is unable to take out such few crystal stones? Li Aoqiong, seeing Bei Chenying's face with an annoying smile, wished he could smash forward with his fists. This Bei Chenying's favorite thing was to jump out at the crucial point to throw stones at him when he was down. Li Aoqiong knew, if he dared not to give these green-colored crystal stones, he feared that in the next moment, Bei Chenying would, without a doubt, proclaim this to be known by everyone in the imperial capital. Bei Chenying truly had this kind of capability. Taking a few deep breaths and steadying his mood, Li Aoqiong indifferently glared at Nangong Luoyun. With a smooth tone he said, "For the time being, I did not bring that many crystal stones with me. I will personally deliver it soon after to Prince Jin's royal manor. I'll take my leave." However, at this moment, Nangong Luoyun's complexion was gloomy. His attention was not even on Li Aoqiong's person, therefore he was standoffish to him. Li Aoqiong thought Nangong Luoyun was scorning him. With a single breath stifled in his throat, he infuriated himself half to death. However, the winner takes all, who told him to be the one that lost. In the end, Li Aoqiong hatefully grinded his teeth, tightly clenched his fists and brought his huge group of people that arrived majestically to escape miserably from this situation. It was exactly like Li Yaoxiang's departure from before. However, in truth he misunderstood Nangong Luoyun. Now, how could Nangong Luoyun's heart even have Li Aoqiong's existence? Those 1,000 pieces of green-colored crystal stones were not even the least bit attractive to him. His pair of pitch-black phoenix eyes unwaveringly stared at Su Luo. Without even blinking, his complexion was hazy as if overlooking the abyss. It felt as if a strong wind was blowing from all around. Nangong Luoyun's pair of pitch-black like ink eyes made people's hearts tremble with fear, and the bottom of their hearts cold. Cough cough, Bei Chen and the three noticed something was wrong with this situation, and immediately wanted to turn and slip away. They had a lot of experience with Nangong Luoyun's mood. If they didn't run now, would they stay to become cannon fodder? Stand still. Su Luo loudly called out to halt them. Sister-in-law, what further instructions do you still have? These little brothers of yours will immediately go do it. Please don't block us, okay? Bei Chenying gave 2 hollow laughs. Su Luo unhappily rolled her eyes at them like a female gang leader as she heroically waved her hands at them. I also won't take advantage of you guys. These source stones that have not yet been cut open, you guys take them to divide among yourselves. Really? Immediately, Bei Chenying and the others' eyes brightened, as if the clouds between heaven and earth had parted, scattering the fog. The sky suddenly opened up to a wide clearing. The air was fresh and clean with the intoxication of a beautiful spring day. Of course, otherwise, why on earth would I stop you guys? Su Luo unhappily rolled her eyes at them. Afterwards, she pointed at that huge chest of source stones. Carry all of these away. I won't be able to use them anyways. What about you, sister-in-law? In all honesty, these three people had already drooled at the source stones inside the chest from long ago. However, because it was their family's sister-in-law, as a result, they dared not lay their hands on these source stones. Chapter 557, Relationship Crisis 3. If this was Li Aoqiong's, Bei Qining would have already organized manpower to lay down a sinister hand in ambush on the road to secretly rob them. I will take the ones that were already cut out. Consider it the cost of my hard work. You guys don't have any objections, right? Su Luo looked at them and smilingly said, No, completely don't have any objections. Bei Qining, as the representative, repeatedly shook his head. Even if inside all the source stones were waste materials, we also don't have any objections. Bei Qining felt that Su Luo had roughly finished cutting most of the source stones with a crystal stone. The remaining source stones should all contain waste materials. She was too lazy to move them, so she set it aside for them, right? If Su Luo knew what Bei Qining was thinking, she would certainly send him flying with one slap. Lan Xian felt that the nice surprise came too fast. It was somewhat unreal. His thinking was the same as Bei Qining, but when compared to Bei Qining, his mouth lacked a filter even more. As a result, he weakly asked, Sister-in-law, this is not like what happened to Wang Zhongkue. In the end, nothing was cut out. Does this bastard even know how to speak? Before Su Luo could get angry and change her mind, Bei Qining and Anya Ming's brows immediately were beaded with sweat. With one of them at each side holding Lan Xian by the arm, they just carried him out like that. Now even all the servants with no duties had already left. Only Nangong Luyun and Su Luo, the two of them, remained inside the room. There wasn't another person left to joke and stall for time for Su Luo. What needed to be confronted must be confronted in the end. The matter is already finished, let's go. Su Luo gave a slight cough, pretending to be calm. She turned around, wishing to leave. She wanted to pretend that nothing had happened, flipping past this page. However, when she was about to brush past Nangong Luyun, her slender wrist was grabbed by him. His mood was coldly stiff and intensely strong. His gaze was as sharp as the edge of a blade, so sharp as if about to chop her into pieces. Still want to go? Nangong Liuyun's tone was coldly stiff, bloodthirsty and cruel. A strong, oppressive feeling, a heavy atmosphere, a strength that would not tolerate resistance, and an unsurpassed air of arrogance. This strong atmosphere belonged to His Highness Prince Jin. Didn't know why, but the bottom of Su Luo's heart felt somewhat weak. She didn't dare to look into Nangong Liuyun's eyes. Su Luo discovered that sweat was being exuded from the center of her palms. Raise your head to look at me. Nangong Luyun was like a furious, berserk beast that had been enduring silently. His pair of eyes pierced directly at her, stabbing her until her heart beat irregularly for a period of time. Su Luo sucked in a deep breath. Wasn't he making a big fuss over a minor issue? Did she really step over the line excessively just now? Su Luo lifted her eyes to look at him. Why should you be this furious? It's not like I lost. Nangong Liuyun's deep eyes became increasingly dark. That trace of implied furious intent made his entire person seem bloodthirsty and cruel. And following these words by Su Luo, it seemed as if the strongest hurricane was brewing within his eyes. Compared to before when he was all smiles and frivolous, it was completely two different people. Su Luo didn't know that her one short sentence forced the fury in his eyes to be even deeper. Her heart couldn't help but be somewhat uncertain. Ultimately, what are you really mad at? It's not like I will really lose you in a bet. Su Luo couldn't make heads or tails of the origin of his rage. It made her feel very helpless. Nangong Liuyun's eyebrows flipped up. The furious flames in his eyes were ignited. He clenched his teeth, and stressing each syllable slowly said, There are always risks with gambling. How dare you say you will win for certain? Only now had Su Luo discovered. She forgot to tell him about the matter of the little divine dragon. Consequently, she tried to explain it to him in a nice tone and pleasant expression. I cannot lose, just because I was certain I cannot lose therefore. Nangong Luyun didn't even give her a chance to explain. He coldly and resolutely interrupted her words. Chapter 558. Relationship Crisis 4. Every word that he stressed was through gritted teeth, wishing to pinch her neck together. His tone was coldly stiff and ruthless. You used this king as a stake in a bet, you, such a woman who dares to do something like this. Abominable. His hand gripped her wrist extremely painfully, but she didn't dare to issue a thread of sound. The consequences of further infuriating him was hard for her to imagine. Can you be a little more reasonable, okay? At that time, I was actually being forced, and I also know that I certainly won't lose, therefore, it turned out like this. I already told you, I absolutely would win. Su Luo tried to explain, but Nangong Luoyun suddenly pressed her down upon the table on the side. Su Luo's petite body was lying down on top of that long table, whereas his body abruptly pressed down on hers. Nangong Luoyun's finger, with clearly discernible bones, pinched her chin and intimately approached her lips. With a fierce and cruel appearance, every word was a threat as he said. There is always a risk associated with gambling. You are just this certain you will win? Su Luo. In fact, inside your heart you must be really annoyed at me, right? You really want to lose me to another, and afterwards, leave in a justifiable manner, right? Even though he was matchlessly strong and overbearing, with his entire body emitting a dangerous aura that was deadly. But Su Luo could clearly see. His tone carried a strong self-mockery. His eyes were full of heartbreak of having been discarded. Even if I were to die, I would never use you as a stake in a bet, but you. Nangong Luoyun coldly and deeply stared fixedly at her, itching to tear her apart and eat her. A voice in his heart unceasingly repeated. This is your Luo girl, therefore by all means, don't injure her, by all means you must not. Rational reasoning continued to remind him. But as long as he recalled her unconcern for him, the fury would unceasingly gather in his chest, making his fingertips tremble. The furious desire grew and became overflowing, making it hard to control. In a sudden split second, Nangong Luoyun pressed down on her, lifted up the back of her head, and strongly seized the edge of her soft lips. It seemed as if he had gone mad, wantonly ravaging the inside of her mouth, without the least bit of tenderness from before. It was rough, wild and ardent. Hurts, the corner of Su Luo's mouth started to bleed from his bite. Su Luo's voice finally stopped Nangong Luoyun, who had gone mad. He released her slightly, with a finger lifting up her delicate chin, and forced her to face him. His face was coldly stiff and bloodthirsty. His pair of eyes lacked any trace of heat, face expressionless. His entire face was cold. Use this king as a gambling stake? Want to lose this king to someone else? You just loathe me this much? Me getting close to you made you loathe me this much. Nangong Luoyun was extremely furious. His entire appearance was sinister and cruel. The hand pinching her chin also increased its strength by 30%. Cough, cough, cough. Su Luo felt that her own chin was about to be pinched into pieces. She couldn't restrain it any longer and started to loudly cough. Su Luo moved her lips. His accusation was unreasonable. She only used him as a gambling stake under the circumstances that she was certain of winning. Could it be that even this was not allowed? Su Luo calmly returned his cruel and vengeful gaze. With an indifferent tone she said, "Right now you need to calm down a bit. So emotional basically would not solve the problem." Calm down a bit? You said this king must calm down a bit? Nangong Luoyun felt that this was extremely laughable and exceedingly absurd. After she had treated him like this, she still told him to calm down a bit? Nangong Luoyun was extremely angry but smiled instead. All of a sudden, he felt he was extremely wretched and extremely stupid. He, because of her, racked his brains for ideas. Because of her, unhesitantly had a falling out with Jade Lakesley family, renounced his principles and perseverance. He didn't expect that she simply had no heart. He suddenly started to smile, a strong self-mockery flashing through his eyes. In the quietness of the empty room, Nangong Luoyun's tone was as soft and gentle as before. Luo Luo, you are too cruel. Chapter 559. Relationship Crisis 5. This dull murmuring had a hard-to-suppress sorrow. This time, he was clearly informed that he was insignificant in her heart. All those great efforts he made in wooing her seemed absurd and laughable. Nangong Luoyun's heart was unprecedentedly tranquil. like the tranquility before the approach of a tempest. Nangong Luoyun indifferently looked at Su Luo's delicate, refined and exquisite features. In the next moment, he turned and left. His pace was fast and urgent. His rear view was determined and firm. Seeing Nangong Luoyun's determined leaving back, Su Luo stared blankly. Afterwards, she foolishly watched as his figure became indistinct. He actually walked away? Just like that, leaving her behind here? Su Luo's heart suddenly welled up with a kind of indescribable feeling of being wronged. Moreover, her heart had a faint and very bad premonition. Nangong Luoyun, you stop there! She yelled loudly towards his back. Su Luo had an urge to impulsively tell him everything. Su Luo told herself, as long as he stops, she will tell him. However, Nangong Luoyun didn't stop his footsteps the slightest bit. His pace became even faster. How could he stop? Also, how could he dare to stop? He clearly knew his own temperament. If he didn't go right now, he didn't know what excessive things he would do to her. Nangong Luoyun's walking away figure, in an instant, had vanished, only leaving Su Luo alone, standing inside the wide hall. The ice-cold night wind, in a flash, poured in. Su Luo only felt her back hair tremble from the cold. Her entire body felt chilled. Su Luo didn't know, in the end, how she returned to Su Manor. She only remembered that last time, there was a huge rainstorm. The howling wind and torrential rain poured down. The entire night was filled with the sound of rain falling to the ground. It was so noisy that she couldn't get a good night's sleep. It also made her heart jittery for the entire night. Having two huge black circles around her eyes, Su Luo listlessly sat at the dining table. Ever since Su Luo defeated Su Qing, revealing her talent, and after Nangong Luoyun, because of her, had a falling out with Jade Lakesley family, Su Luo's days at Su Manor became increasingly easier. Didn't know if it was because Su Xian's heart felt guilty or was trying to curry favor. In short, now Su Luo could be considered the #1 favored person in Su Manor. As long as there were good stuff, it would absolutely first be delivered to her wisteria courtyard. Moreover, there weren't any servants that hadn't grown eyes to dare bully them. Miss, have a taste of this snow lotus fruit. It was rushed here from the north about 150 kilometers away. It's really fresh. Lu Luo sliced the snow pear-sized snow lotus fruit neatly into smaller pieces. Every piece had a thin bamboo stick stuck in it, making it convenient for Su Luo to eat. The snow lotus fruit shone with a lovely flavor. The most important thing was that it could strengthen a person's physique, raising the efficiency of a person's cultivation. Every single snow lotus fruit was worth thousands in gold, and could only be found by chance. This time, it was bestowed by the emperor. Su Xian only had 2 of them. He heroically gave one of them to Su Luo. Su Luo's current favored position could clearly be seen. Miss, quickly try a taste before we couldn't even sniff it. The current living conditions Lu Luo was very satisfied with. But Su Luo sat in front of the dining table with her chin rested on both hands, both eyes blank, her entire person listless. She seemed to be declining to the point of decay. She was often lost in thought in a daze, didn't know what she was thinking. Mississippi Lu Luo sensed that the miss, since returning last night, afterwards, her entire person seemed strange. The original her, although didn't have smiles of exultation. She was still bursting with life and full of vitality. But the her from last night was like a frosted-over eggplant. Her entire person was withered and listless. Su Luo waved her hand. You eat it, don't worry about me. Su Luo's pair of eyes was empty, staring at the rain outside the window, lost in thought. Chapter 560, Relationship Crisis 6. She had continuously thought over yesterday's matter. Nangong Luoyun's strong self-mockery and his aggrieved pair of star-like eyes. She couldn't wave it away from her mind. It caused Su Luo to feel guilty about yesterday's matter all along, only, she simply could not lower her face to go find Nangong Luoyun to apologize. Therefore, this matter continued to be a deadlock. Didn't know how long had passed. All of a sudden, the urgent sound of footsteps came from outside the door. The venerable Beichen, this is the Mrs. Boudoir, you can't go in. Outside was the sound of Nanny Sasa's voice, trying to stop him. But the sound of those footsteps didn't seem to have paused, rapidly rushing towards Su Luo's boudoir. The hanging curtain at the door was lifted open, and Bei Qinying's anxious face entered Su Luo's sight. "Sister-in-law, quickly come with me." Bei Qinying anxiously pulled at Su Luo. Su Luo's heart dropped with a thump sound. An indistinct bad premonition appeared. Has Nangong Lian met with a mishap? Now Su Luo could clearly hear her own heart beating. Ba dump, ba dump. It was violent and clear. At this moment, she clearly realized that she was nervous for and cared about Nangong Lian. Yes, second brother met with a mishap. I will tell you slowly on the way there. Let us go quickly. Bei Qinying's tone was fretful and impatient. Good, I will go with you right now. Su Luo's body was only covered in a plain white dress. There was no time to change clothes, and she rushed away, following Bei Qinying. Miss, Lu Luo had just brought Su Luo a bowl of white fungus lotus seed soup. She lifted her head to see Su Luo walking away like a gust of wind. The inside of the carriage was quiet. Quiet for a long time. Bei Qinying was still the first to open his mouth because he could not remain calm any longer. Yesterday, many thanks to sister-in-law's gift. Those were originally what you guys deserve. Su Luo's tone was serene. Yesterday's matter made her heart ache. Unless it was essential, she really didn't want to have it mentioned. But since Bei Qinying still had the inclination to gossip with her, it was proof that Nangong Liuyun's matter still hadn't reached the urgent, dangerous degree. Therefore, her heart that was tightly clenched also slowly relaxed. Bei Qinying just shook his head. That pair of pretty limpid, huge eyes stared fixedly at Su Luo. Do you know, after cutting open those source stones, what was inside them? What's inside? Su Luo pretended she did not care and asked. In fact, what was inside? How could Su Luo not know? Within every source stone, it all contained a crystal stone. It was every single source stone. Bei Qinying shook his head in disbelief. In a split second, his expression carried some excitement. Sister-in-law, how did you accomplish this? This thing is completely impossible to occur. Like Bei Qinying, this kind of influential family, the family naturally supported quite a few masters at gambling on stones. The crystal stones they won in the gamble would be provided to the family's disciples to use for cultivation. But Bei Qinying, from childhood to now, had never seen Su Luo's kind of mystical existence. He firmly believed there was no way for her to cheat, because he provided the source stones. Moreover, at the time, all the cutting of the source stones occurred in front of their eyes. Su Luo's blindly grabbing at the source stones, but every piece, that was right, every piece of source stone all contained a crystal stone inside. Moreover, it was all high-grade crystal stones. Could it be said that little Luo's eyes could see through the matchlessly hard source stones and see the crystal stone inside? Bei Qinying's gaze was like looking and worshipping gods, fervently staring at Su Luo's eyes. However, Bei Qinying immediately tossed out his own thoughts and firmly shook his head. Impossible, Su Luo's strength was so low. No matter how much she cultivated her pair of eyes, it was impossible to succeed in cultivating to the degree of penetrating through the surface of the source stone into its heart. It couldn't be said, but Bei Qinying, you actually hit upon the truth, yet you tossed out the real truth again, alas. Chapter 561, Relationship Crisis 7. Being watched by his heated gaze made her heart a bit uncomfortable. Su Luo gave 2 light coughs. Wasn't it just blindly grabbed? My luck was good, okay. What other possibility is there? Bei Qinying half believed it and half doubted it. If Su Luo completely depended on luck, he naturally would not believe it. If it was said Su Luo did not rely on luck, then how could it be explained? Su Luo did not want to reveal the little divine dragon's unusual ability, because this little thing was already mystical enough. She didn't want this little thing to arouse all the influential party's pursuit, because if it was that way, she basically would be unable to protect his safety. Not too convinced. Bei Qinying still maintained his own standpoint. Then as you wish. It's important that you guys seal your lips, don't spread it out. Otherwise, everyone will run to me to appraise a source stone. Then I will be busy to death. She didn't cut open the rest of the source stones in front of Liao Qiong, just because of taking this point into consideration. If all the source stones were cut open, and every one of them had a crystal stone, such success would be very invigorating and very eye-catching. However, the result would be? Crystal stones were what kind of scarce natural resources? If people were to know that she had this kind of unusual ability, when the time came, would she still be able to pass a day peacefully? As for Li Aoqiong, he lost so miserably this time. Believing in his nature, he certainly would not spread it out. Wang Zhongkui was also the same. Don't need you to command us. Second brother had already instructed us earlier. Bei Qining unhappily said. How could Nangong Luyan allow Su Luo to face 10,000th of a chance of being at risk? He had already thought of everything completely on behalf of Su Luo. When did he instruct you guys? He obviously left last night in such a rage. His rage was as if the two of them would never meet again. It was as if they had already parted ways. Yesterday when he left. Bei Qining answered without thinking. Yesterday when he left? Su Luo's heart suddenly whipped about. She grabbed Bei Qining. You didn't remember it wrongly? How could I remember it wrongly? After you left, second brother's temper was really bad. As if shrouded in howling winds and torrential rain. He nearly scared us to death. Such a serious matter. How could I remember wrongly? Bei Qinying's pretty pair of large eyes flicked with gossip. Oh, that's right. How did you in the end provoke him? I still have never seen second brother this furious. Su Luo looked outside the window in a daze. Yesterday he was in such a towering rage, so furious as to lose nearly all reason. But he still warned Bei Qining and them about this. After her treating him like that, he still carefully and sincerely helped her get rid of trouble from the aftermath. The place closest to Su Luo's heart throbbed with pain. She felt she was simply too mean. Bei Qining gave a heavy sigh. Su Luo, can I ask you a question? This was the first time after meeting that Bei Qining called her by her name. Such seriousness, solemnity and graveness. You can ask. Su Luo unflinchingly replied to him. You explain you treat us very well, but why treat Nangong Luyan with a neither cold nor hot manner? Bei Qining was extremely puzzled. How many people vied for and fought over to be good to Nangong Luyan? If he was really going to count, then the line of people would wrap around the entire capital. But unfortunately, Nangong Luyan liked Su Luo, while Su Luo seemed to be indifferent to him. This really made them as spectators feel at a loss. Bei Qinying's questioning sentence really stumped Su Luo. Is it because it was too easily obtained? Instead, you are unable to treasure it? Bei Qining saw Su Luo remain silent and unspeaking, and again, added a sentence. Both of Su Luo's hands pinched the corner of her skirt. She continued to be silent. Could it really be obtaining it too easily and instead couldn't treasure it? Su Luo searched her heart and discovered, to her sorrow, she really could understand after much thought. Chapter 562, Relationship Crisis, 8. Unable to cut through the continued confusion. The most troublesome was feelings. Bei Qining saw Su Luo's ambiguous manner, and he couldn't help but have a moment of silence in tribute for Nangong Luyan. One was pursuing relentlessly to strike. One was cool and collected. It was doomed to walk a bending, rugged mountain road with 18 turns and 9 bends. Bei Qining decided to fight for a shortcut for Nangong Luyan. He earnestly gazed at Su Luo, slowly opening his mouth to ask. Do you know how much Nangong cherishes you? Su Luo suddenly raised her head, and met his black, bright and clear gaze. Bei Qining slowly told Su Luo. Do you know Nangong actually gave a lifetime's worth of warmth that he wanted, but couldn't obtain, all of it to you. Bei Qinying's words were like a thunderstrike. Su Luo's heart was unprecedentedly shaken. A warmth he wished for, but couldn't obtain? Su Luo vigilantly discovered. There was certainly a story behind this. As for the story behind this, I cannot say. Perhaps, after you truly give your heart to him, he will tell you the whole story. But I will warn you in advance that story is extraordinarily tragic. Su Luo's curiosity was immediately hooked. However, Bei Qining was well versed in the art of conversation. After hooking Su Luo's curiosity, he immediately changed the subject. Actually, last night's matter was also quite tragic. What happened? Su Luo frowned slightly. Last night, I don't know how you provoked him. After instructing a few things, he directly left. Then he didn't return for the entire night. Bei Qining watched Su Luo. Only until this morning did he return, limping and covered in blood from head to toe. Covered in blood from head to toe and limping? Su Luo's eyes suddenly tensed up. The injuries on his body still haven't healed. How could he so recklessly use his martial arts? Bei Qining spread out both hands. Only afterwards did we find out. Originally, last night, he directly went to attack Yunlu Mountain. Yunlu Mountain? Su Luo inquired. Yunlu Mountain is the Longhu stronghold. According to our investigation of many days, we discovered that this was the dragon gang of the Eastern Seas behind-the-scenes supporter on dry land. The imperial court had already begun to deploy forces. Who knew Nangong? Bei Qining massaged his temples. The news we received this morning was that the 1,300 named Longhu stronghold gang members were all thoroughly killed. For law enforcers of the gang were all nailed to the wall by a person. That stronghold master's death was the most cruel. He was actually crushed to death by source stones. Therefore, a man in the midst of frantic emotion was truly very frightening. Fortunately, the dragon gang of the Eastern Sea was already completely destroyed. Otherwise, how would they bear this man's rage? Longhu gang was merely a behind-the-scenes supporter of the dragon gang of the Eastern Sea. How could they know that they would become Nangong Liuyun's target to vent his fury? Very likely, that stronghold's master, in the end, wasn't clear why the opponent would crush him to death with source stones. Su Luo opened her mouth, but found herself trying but unable to speak a word. Bei Qining patted Su Luo's shoulder. Be at ease, you are the sole person he wants warmth from. He will only cherish you to the utmost. Towards the rest of us, he can kill without blinking an eye. Su Luo. Bei Qining brought Su Luo to the Prince Jin's royal manor. They stopped at the doorway of Nangong Liuyun's wing. He solemnly coaxed Su Luo. Nangong is now suffering from some serious injuries. If you aren't careful, it's very likely to leave behind residual effects. Residual effects? She recalled Nangong Liuyun's monthly pain in his legs, and Su Luo solemnly nodded. Bei Qining once again patiently and systematically guided her. Therefore this time, you absolutely cannot stir up his anger again, understand? That was, let him get everything he wanted? Su Luo's long, shapely brows knitted slightly. Such a request could be a little difficult. Who knows if Nangong Liuyun would act like a rogue. Chapter 563. Temper tantrum appeased. 1. Bei Qining sent a final glance at Su Luo, turned around and left. Su Luo's hands were placed on the door. After being tangled several times, she couldn't make a firm decision to knock. An impatient voice came faintly from inside. Carry it out. Following after was a burst of sounds from porcelain falling to the ground. Afterwards, the door opened, and a servant girl carrying broken pieces of porcelain that were neatly picked up appeared with red eyes, her fingertips covered in beads of blood. In the wake of the door being opened, Su Luo smelled the unpleasant aroma of alcohol. With the door opened wide, Su Luo walked towards him step by step. At this moment, Nangong Liuyun was reclining on the bed, his face reclined towards the inside, only exposing the robust outline of his back. Him right now did not seem to look even a little well. He was dressed only in one inner layer of white clothing, his body covered with all kinds of bruises and scars, wrapped casually with gauze. It was as if it was not carefully wrapped and managed. I said I won't eat, get lost. Nangong's tone carried a lot of impatience, a pillow smashing directly towards Su Luo. Although it was merely a pillow, but he as an 8-rank expert. How astonishing was his might. Su Luo's body slightly leaned to one side, subconsciously using her spirit dance steps, and thus, was able to avoid this calamity. If she was replaced with a common servant girl, a corpse would already be lying on the ground. Nangong Liuyun didn't turn around, still lying down and facing inside with his back towards Su Luo. Su Luo stood in the original place, motionless, gazing at his rear view, thinking that this man, because of one unintentional sentence from her, lost himself and went to war, taking the entire Longhu stronghold down in one night of bloodbath, and making the entire imperial court hold back with restrained fear. Thinking this, her gaze became gentle and complex. After a long time, probably feeling that there was no movement from the person behind him, Nangong Liuyun impatiently turned around. How is it you are still not dead? The one word dead stiffened at the corner of his perfectly water caltrip-shaped lips. His brows furrowed tensely, glaring at Su Luo with displeasure, and fiercely gave her a cutting glance. Who allowed you to come? Su Luo pretended she could not clearly hear the displeasure in his words. Step by step, she walked over and finally stood in front of him. She stared at him, unblinkingly looking, not saying a word. Nangong Lian's complexion was not good. He coldly snorted several times. Who do you think you are? Is Prince Jin's royal manor somewhere you want to come and can do so? His tone was ice-cold, cold as freezing ice. Suddenly hearing it would obliterate a person's prestige. Wishing they could cover their face, sobbing with tears and running out. But Su Luo could determine, even though he had on a cruel appearance, his eyes were not cold at all. The smell of strong alcoholic drink also remained on his body, faintly carrying traces of the smell of blood. This made people vaguely imagine his savageness from last night. Recalling that he had actually used that kind of method to vent his anger, Su Luo's heart felt slightly sour, and she subconsciously turned her face away. Seeing Su Luo standing in front of him but not saying a word, Nangong Liuyun's tone became increasingly disgusted. Like a log sticking there, don't you know how to apologize? Su Luo's pitch black as ink, star-like eyes only calmly looked at him. She was silent, unspeaking. The sunlight hit his face, giving the cold contours of the side of his face some vitality. Originally, his looks was handsome like the gods, but because of anger, it became even more prominent and vivid. It was nearly impossible for people to look away. For a moment, both people were silent, mutually looking at each other. The world seemed to have stood still at this moment. Didn't know how much time had passed. Nangong Luyun suddenly stood up, limping to walk over and open the door to the room. Why did you come here? Quickly leave. I don't want to look at you at this moment. Nangong Liuyun's forehead was tightly wrinkled, his complexion bad. His countenance appeared even more impatient. Seeing Su Luo still standing there motionless, Nangong Luyun became increasingly more impatient. Chapter 564. Temper Tantrum Appeased 2. He fiercely glared at Su Luo. Still not leaving? Waiting for someone to invite you to stay and eat. He was so fiendish, as if between them, they were merely unfamiliar strangers. Just as if he had retrieved all the tenderness and indulging love in one night's time. Just as if between them was an estranged lack of regard. Su Luo's heart was slightly acidic. It was because she couldn't feel him naggingly chasing, spoiling and indulging her. Now he was suddenly not treating her so well. She actually felt having been wronged somewhat. Nangong, that day's matter. Su Luo quickly walked up to him, pulled at his sleeves and raised her head to look at him. Nangong Liuyun's tall handsome body paused slightly, but his complexion was still as impatient as before. Moreover, it was cold and detached as if shrouded in frost. I order you to get lost. He pointed to outside. His expression was just that furious. His tone was firm and his heart seemed to have made a firm resolution, not allowing another opinion. Su Luo knew that day's matter. These 3 words thoroughly offended him. Nangong Luyun, seeing Su Luo being motionless, coldly snorted a few times, and soon afterwards, with a thunderous noise, he threw the door open. The door smashed heavily against the wall, issuing a violent-sounding noise. Outside the door, there was the image of 3 people looking at each other in dismay, having had no time to hide. They were dumbstruck. Bei Chening saw this situation and paused, feeling it was far from good. It looked like the matter this time was really huge. Even Su Luo couldn't calm down the situation. Then what to do? You guys want to court death? Nangong Luyun was clearly displeased. His gaze was like ice blades, staring at the 3 in front of him. He looked so vengeful as if he was about to eat someone. This kind of furious Nangong Luyun, they really didn't dare to meet his eyes. Bei Chening and them shrunk their necks. Cough cough cough. Lan Xian, this child, was the most unable to remain calm, and he hastily begged for forgiveness. Second brother, this person is someone we. Wherever she was found, throw her back there. Don't hang around in front of me. Just seeing her makes me feel sick. Nangong Liuyun's expression seemed to be submerged into water, very fiercely tossing out these words. Lan Xian was suddenly dumbstruck and unable to reply. The few of them had no way to deal with Nangong Luyun. With great difficulty, they had invited sister-in-law over, and was told this trump card was useless. Hearing Nangong Liuyun's vengeful and cruel words, Su Luo's entire person stared blankly at the original spot. Foolishly, unable to determine how she ought to react. The place nearest to her heart had a kind of piercing pain. It hurt her so much that the rim of her eyes were somewhat red. I order you to toss her out. Nangong Luyun pointed at Su Luo, and very impatiently shouted in anger. Su Luo's heart stopped slightly, her hands were tightly clenched into fists. Being ignored like this by someone, if according to her temper from her past, she would have already washed her hands of him and left. However, this time, she really did make a mistake in her mind. Su Luo looked at those crisscrossing scars on Nangong Luyun, and her heart became slightly sour. Wait, you guys leave first. Su Luo saw the helpless Beichen and them who were slowly, helplessly shifting towards her, shaking her head as indication. Her tone was light and soft, it seemed very tranquil. Beichening looked at Su Luo and again looked at Nangong Luyun. Logically, they ought to listen to Nangong Luyun, but their hearts wanted Su Luo to remain behind, to heal the wound inside Nangong Luyun's heart. Beichening and them looked at each other in dismay soon after. Withdraw. Didn't know who first yelled out this word. Dare to leave, just try it. Nangong Luyun's tone was light as a breeze, but threatened Beichen, these three people, until their faces looked emaciated. However, Su Luo heavily slamming the door shut was his response, issuing a loud noise. Now Nangong Luyun's complexion became increasingly more hazy. Nangong Luyun was dressed in a light inner clothing as he coldly stood in front of the doorway, unfeelingly staring at her. Chapter 565. Temper Tantrum Appeased 3. He displayed a very heartless expression towards her, as if all of his tenderness and doting on her from before was an illusion. He wanted to take it back, then he took it all back. He took it away until it was completely neat and clean. But Su Luo could sense, his coldness towards her was merely a thin outer shell, that it was an outer layer he was able to paint on. His self-esteem was stronger than any other person's. Su Luo hugged Nangong Luyun's sleeves, her tone even softer. Nangong, I was wrong. Nangong Luyun's handsome straight body paused slightly, but still had his chin stubbornly raised. He didn't look at Su Luo and only coldly said, "Let go of this king." Not letting go. Su Luo simply leaned her entire head on his arm, hugging him tightly, even dead. She wouldn't let go. Who do you think you are? Is this king's arm for someone who wants to hug it, and can just hug it? You, as the most unloved concubine's daughter from Su Manor. What qualifications do you have to hug this king? Humph. Nangong Luyun glowered at her, clenching his teeth as he said, stressing each word. Even though Nangong Luyun was still as fierce as before, but he had already softened a little bit from before. Su Luo naturally could feel it immediately. Su Luo was not foolish. Instead, she used her well-known negotiation skills. If she followed along with Nangong Luyun's subject, she would definitely be angered until her veins burst. Therefore, she must let him continue to act proudly and spoiled. Therefore, the clever her immediately changed the subject. Nangong Luyun, you don't keep your words. Su Luo's accusation had a trace of criticism. Her tone was loose and flexible, like the afternoon sunshine, that kind of flexible, soft and indolent. Nangong Luyun was somewhat stupefied by Su Luo's use of this soft expression. But he still raised his head and stuck out his chest arrogantly like a phoenix. Finally he humphed twice. Nonsense. This king's always says 1 is 1, and 2 is then 2. Never have I violated an oath, you this little girl, don't talk nonsense. Due to him hardly ever giving others an oath, therefore, how could you talk about not honoring a promise? Just yesterday you made a vow, now, how quickly did you forget? Don't remember? Humph. Want to go find Li Aoqiong to come and bear witness? Su Luo pretended to be angry. Nangong Luyun's figure was slightly stumped for words. Yesterday, the matter of making a vow in front of Li Aoqiong, those words were originally from the bottom of his heart. How could he forget? Now you've remembered? Nangong Luyun, for the rest of your life, you are mine. You dare not want me, I will. I will not let you get married for the rest of your life. Su Luo very fiercely threatened. Yesterday, Nangong Liuyun's oath was vivid in everyone's mind. Nangong Liuyun was checkmated by Su Luo. He had a complicated expression. That pair of deep, pitch-black eyes unblinkingly looked at Su Luo, looking deeply into the deepest part of her eyes. The two stood face to face, very close to each other. Due to the natural disparity in height between them, his breaths lingered over her head. His tall figure cast a shadow on her body, covering her entire body. It was as if the two of them were one, never to be separated. Nangong Liuyun lowered his eyes in stillness. He watched her. Su Luo lifted her eyes. Her clever, beautiful eyes unblinkingly returned his gaze. Feeling that he was not as coldly stiff as before, the corner of Su Luo's mouth was raised in a dazzling smile like a summer flower. Nangong, I was wrong. I was truly wrong. Just pretend that it was a fart from me. Let's not bicker over this, okay? Nangong Liuyun still hadn't said a word. That pair of pitch-black as ink eyes were tightly fixed to her. His breathing was not as smooth as before. His mood seemed to have a slight fluctuation. Su Luo again smiled. She held Nangong Liuyun's hand, swaying it left and right. I truly know I was wrong. Can you not be mad, okay? Please forgive me, okay? If you continue to be mad, you could harm your body. How much of a loss that would be. The gains couldn't make up for it. 1. Pretend it was a fart from me. This is the literal word-by-word translation. In Chinese, farting said in a curing tone means lies/nonsense. So this sentence could also mean pretend I just released some lies/nonsense. I prefer leaving the word fart in. Chapter 566. Temper tantrum appeased. 4. Humph, now you know you were wrong? Too late. Nangong Liuyun humphed twice and turned his face away, carrying a bit of the childish act of being in a huff. As long as you are still here, as long as you are still waiting for me, then it's not too late. Su Luo pulled at his sleeves and walked to face him, gazing deeply at him. She could feel Nangong Liuyun's change in mood. Originally, his defense that wouldn't let oil or salt in, now already had signs of softening. As long as she persisted, no matter how hard the icy frost was, it could also be thawed. Because his heart had her, thus, she was able to influence his mood. Nangong Liuyun sent a glare toward Su Luo, close to gnashing his teeth. Opinionated woman, who gave you this kind of misconception? As to whether I am opinionated or not, you are the most clear, isn't that so? Su Luo did not mind his manner. His childish fit of pique, Su Luo felt it was extremely cute. Try to stick less gold on your own face, who likes that? Nangong Liuyun's tone was very hard, as he turned his face away. You don't like it? Then I'll leave. Su Luo threw him off, turned around and just walked out. Nangong Liuyun's complexion immediately became very ugly. A pair of eyes that was sharp as a sword thrust toward Su Luo. This kind of loathsome girl, said she wanted to go and just left. Seeing her rear view as she turned around and walked away without any reluctance, he opened his mouth, but hesitated, unable to produce a thread of sound. Just when he raised his hand, wanting to yell to stop Su Luo. Su Luo, who had walked a few steps, suddenly stopped her footsteps. She turned around to smile at him. How's that? Didn't you hate to part with me? Didn't you really want to yell for me to stop, but felt too embarrassed to open your mouth? The hand that Nangong Liuyun just lifted up suddenly dropped down. He resentfully glared at Su Luo, and then turned his body around with his back to her. Su Luo silently smiled. Her Nangong was just that cute, really. The more she looked, the more she liked him. Okay, I won't leave. I will stay behind to keep you company. This way will be better, right? Su Luo slowly walked to his side, and hooked onto his lanky arm, lifting her eyes to smile at him. Nangong Liuyun pretended not to care, carrying on with his attitude. Now it's because you yourself wanted to stay behind, crying and yelling, wanting to stay behind. Nobody forced you. I know you continuously tried to push me out. It was I myself who shamelessly wanted to remain behind. This way, will your heart be more comfortable? Do you feel successful? My Royal Highness Prince Jean? Su Luo exasperatedly said while smiling. Seeing Nangong Liuyun's complexion turn ashen in a split second, Su Luo sincerely felt that her mood was very cheerful. Okay, don't be angry. Being angry is harmful to the healing of your wounds. Su Luo pointed to his wounds, frowning slightly. Why is it you haven't treated the wounds? What were those servants doing to earn their food? Nangong Luoyun pulled Su Luo to sit on a soft couch, picked a comfortable position to sit crookedly and unhurriedly tossed out a sentence. Without this king's command, who dares? A tyrannical and also very strong man. Su Luo helplessly shook her head. I have discovered that your body type is really disastrous. Haven't met you for very long, but to actually be wounded in action in quick succession. Still going to be a god, His Highness Prince Jin. Aren't you embarrassed? Nangong Luoyun, close to gnashing his teeth, stared at Su Luo. Weren't those all because of you? The Nangong Luoyun before meeting Su Luo was almost never wounded, but after meeting Su Luo, really was all kinds of connected disasters that arrived. Nangong Luoyun was also helpless and getting used to it. Su Luo embarrassedly stuck out her tongue. Couldn't fault Nangong Luoyun for placing this charge on her body. What he said seemed to be right. Every time, it was because of her. But at least this time it wasn't. Don't tell me it was I who told you to go exterminate the Longhu gang? Don't push all the charges onto me. Su Luo humphed twice. Chapter 567. Temper Tantrum Appeased 5. Just because of you. Nangong Luoyun grinded his teeth. You dare to deny it? That pair of eyes that was black as ink, so aggressive, how would Su Luo dare to say a word of refute? Okay, put it all on me, okay? Now what do you want to do? Su Luo's manner softened. Nangong Luoyun crossed one leg over the other, and comfortably leaned crookedly against the soft couch. He raised an eyebrow, the corner of his lips hooking into a demonically charming smile directed at Su Luo. What was he doing? Suddenly, Su Luo's heart was uneasy. Come here. On Nangong Luoyun's handsome face was an alluring and devilishly charming smile. That smiling expression made the observing Su Luo's heart cautious and panicked. What are you thinking of doing? Su Luo subconsciously retreated a few steps back, cautiously staring at Nangong Luoyun. Nangong Luoyun's sharp eyebrows moved slightly, wrinkling. Still dilly-dallying? Haven't eaten your fill yet? Su Luo seriously nodded instead. How do you know? I really still haven't eaten my fill yet. Nangong Luoyun's complexion darkened. Just wanted to say something, but heard Su Luo loudly yell. Seeing that last night you were so busy, certainly, you also must not have eaten well, right? Wait, I will immediately bring it to you. Finished speaking, Su Luo ran far away like a wisp of smoke. Nangong Luoyun's finger, which was originally pointed at Su Luo with resentment towards her at having failed his expectations, immediately stiffened in midair. Afterwards he slowly laid down his hand, his red water caltrip-shaped mouth hooking up slightly. Clearly, his mood was pretty good. The hall of Prince Jin's royal manor. The three of them with Bei Qining was huddled in a circle. The three heads were placed together. Every one of their faces were bitter melon-shaped. Bei Qining was so aggrieved that he nearly cried, helplessly saying, What to do? Now even Luo, this trump card won't work. Who else should we go search for? Lan Xian's mouth was pursed, frowning. Last night, second brother exterminated the Longhu gang. Tonight, don't know what sect or gang he will exterminate. Those sects are really pitiful. Anya Ming slapped the naturally foolish head of Lan Xian. Idiot! Why didn't you think about why second brother didn't exterminate other gangs, but would just go exterminate Longhu gang? Ran into them, right? Lan Xian's words were said with a too uncertain tone. Ran into them, your sister. Bei Qining, without a trace of politeness, gave his forehead a flick. It's because Longhu gang was the Dragon Gang of the Eastern Sea's supporter. Moreover, those source stones from the Dragon Gang of the Eastern Sea were the original sin. Alas, youth. Source stones. Lan Xian cried out loud. But the source stones were moved by us. Therefore, the next target is the three handsome youngsters' eyes immediately showed a terrified expression. At this moment, Su Luo just so happened to run out from Nangong's room. Her speed was very fast, as if there was a dog chasing her from behind. Oh, the three of you are here? Just perfect. Su Luo was very happy to see them, and was just about to ask them what dishes Nangong liked to eat. However, when the three saw Su Luo, it was as if they had seen a ghost. With a bang sound, they stood up, and again, a rustling sound was heard as they rushed away. Huh! Why are the three of you guys running? Su Luo shouted to their backs. She still wanted to tell them that Nangong's mood had already changed back from overcast to clear. Sister-in-law. The mercenary union is very busy. I will first go back to handle the affairs. Second brother will be left in your care. While running, Beichening turned around to yell. I'll go help. Lan Xian followed with a loud yell. Second that. The always calm and collected An Yeming ran at the very front. Hey you guys, Su Luo placed both hands at her hips, extremely helpless. Su Luo could only enter the kitchen by herself. When the people in the kitchen saw Su Luo, immediately, their eyes were almost vertical, shocked as if facing a great enemy. Princess, young lady, this kitchen is full of soot and oil. Why did you come in? Chapter 568. Temper Tantrum Appeased 6. This manager Su was so nervous that he nearly cried. His Highness Prince Jean had just issued some orders to people at the manor. Whoever dared to neglect this great Buddha in front of them in the slightest, then the consequences would be too horrible to contemplate. Hearing herself being addressed so, Su Luo immediately smiled. What young lady princess? What's all this and that title? Just calling me Miss Su Luo will be fine. Su Luo rarely had a smile on her face, but these people in the kitchen, including Manager Su, each and every one of them was frightened and treated her with caution. They seemed even more nervous than when facing the emperor. Su Luo subconsciously touched her own face. The facial features were delicate, a quiet and exquisite style that was pleasant. At first glance, she might not be stunning, but she was the type where the more you looked, the more she seemed to deserve a second look. Miss Su, whatever you need, just tell us. Inside a kitchen is a place full of oil and soot, and also very slippery. If you knocked or bumped into something, we will. With our 10 lives, it would still not be enough to compensate. Once Manager Su said it, those cooks and helpers all nodded simultaneously. Su Luo's heart secretly sighed. The servants in Prince Jin's royal manor were too pitiful. Being intimidated by Nangong Luyan, this tyrant, made their psychological strength exceedingly low. How long has it been since your Highness Prince Jin last ate? Su Luo asked lightly. Manager Su deferentially responded. Since His Highness returned last night, the kitchen had prepared meals 18 times already, but without exception, it was all left uneaten. Okay, you people can go now. Su Luo waved her hand. But Manager Su was still not assured, trembling with fear as he stared at Su Luo's delicate little hand holding the knife. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and with great difficulty. How about letting this old servant act as your sous chef? No need. All of you go out now. Su Luo stiffened her face, not allowing another say in this. Manager Su was suddenly nervous and repeatedly nodded, bringing everyone out. Very quickly, such a huge kitchen only had Su Luo remaining behind in it. Nobody knew, not even Yin Qi from before knew that Su Luo actually had very good cooking skills. Su Luo decided to be a little nicer to Nangong Luyan. As a result, she would start with cooking first. Nangong Luyan hadn't eaten for a night. His stomach should be empty. Eating soft foods was most suitable. Therefore, Su Luo decided to make congee. There was no way for her to make the most delicious and popular meat with preserved egg congee, because here, they didn't even have preserved eggs. Thus, Su Luo decided to make her best dish of threaded chicken congee. She took out a piece of chicken breast and tore it into threads, and also washed the vegetables clean and cut it all. Su Luo put together the chicken breast soup with the highest grade rice. As for the water used to boil the congee, Su Luo very extravagantly exchanged it for the spirit spring water from inside her space. After tightly covering it with a lid, she used a slow, thin fire to stew it. Just drinking congee was too monotonous. Su Luo looked all around in the kitchen, and saw a golden whitebait fish in the water jar. The golden whitebait fish was great for healing injuries. It was most suitable for Nangong Luyan, that sick patient. Su Luo discovered that after she had her martial arts, The speed she processed the fish was not just an ordinary sort of fast. The hand raised the knife then landed, and a golden whitebait fish was already neatly processed. Su Luo washed it clean, and on both sides of the fish, she cut a few slanting lines that were neither too deep nor too shallow. A wind from her palm swept by, and the originally dripping wet golden whitebait fish was immediately dry. She opened the fire, poured in a little vegetable oil, added a few slices of ginger and segments of green scallions. Su Luo placed the golden whitebait fish into the wok and stir-fried it for a short time. She then pan-fried both sides of the golden whitebait fish until it was golden brown. She poured in the already boiled water and placed the already pan-fried fish inside the water. Then, she added a few slices of ginger and segments of green scallions, using a huge fire to cook, until her soup had turned into a milky white color. Only naturally, the water in this soup was also replaced by Su Luo with the spirit spring water from her space. Opening the pot, one could only smell an intense fragrance that hit one in the face. Chapter 569. Temper Tantrum Appeased 7. Looking at the fruits of her own labor, Su Luo nodded with satisfaction. Outside of the kitchen, Manager Su and them didn't really go far. They were all nervously standing watch from outside the door, straining their ears to listen for the situation inside, fearing that their future princess would meet with even a small mishap. "Princess, what is Miss Su doing? Ah?" The first chef stood on tiptoe, sticking his head out to look around inside. "She is personally cooking for His Highness." The second chef's first guess was right on the money. "Does she even know how to ah? I'm not just saying this, but Our Highness is the pickiest about his food. He does not eat any kind of chicken, duck or fish. He does not even look at the fresh vegetables. We are also considered some of the top-notch cooks in the kitchen, right? But His Highness is still not very satisfied. The stuff this Miss Su manages to make. Would it be edible?" A third chef had deep skepticism towards the outcome. The fourth chef felt the most indignant at this injustice. How could such a rich miss personally cook in the kitchen? The stuff she makes certainly won't be edible. Manager Su scowled coldly, cast them a glance and solemnly warned. "Shut up if you don't want to die." His Highness Prince Jean had already said, if he let this Miss Su have one thread of dissatisfaction, even just a slight wrinkle of her brows, and they would all have to automatically jump into the lake. Therefore, everyone's manner in treating the future princess must be a heartfelt, dedicated worship like holding the moon. They must not let the future princess receive even an iota of grievance. Once Manager Su said those words, immediately, the surrounding area turned quiet. You could even clearly hear the sound of the blowing wind and leaves dropping down. Wasn't His Highness Prince Jean not interested in females getting close? This time it was truly unprecedentedly grand. Ah! Just at this moment, from the kitchen, came a startling sound. And what is this smell? So aromatic. Ah! The first chef sniffed with his nose. Step by step he walked forward, his eyes carrying a touch of infatuation. It seems to be coming from the kitchen. The second chef was staring in astonishment at the tightly closed door. Could it be Miss Su? The third chef said, simply in disbelief. This is impossible. The fourth chef's eyes were opened wide until they were perfectly round, with an outrageous appearance. Creak, the noise sounded, and the tightly closed door of the kitchen quietly opened. Su Luo, fully concentrating on carrying food containers, walked out. An unprecedented aroma filled the air between heaven and earth. The aroma spread, making everyone's mouth water. Oh heavens, this smell, so fragrant. Oh heavens, just smelling this aroma, I am already about to pass out from happiness. Is this the kind of food truly made by our future princess? If it's real, then how could we survive? The food that the princess personally made was many times better than these expert imperial chefs. Everyone repeatedly sighed ruefully, and was also restless. A rich fragrance filled the air, lingering for a long time. The fragrance was simply too captivating, making a person's mouth move, water, and making it so difficult for them to swallow their own saliva. It gave people an urge to pounce up and snatch that food container away. They had served as chefs for most of their lives, yet such a fragrance had never appeared from the food they cooked. Moreover, they faintly felt, that regardless of how many spices they put, they would still be unable to cook this kind of fragrant, rich smell. How was this achieved in the end? Simply putting spices in is not the cause, really no matter how much I think, I can't understand. Really want to taste a bite, just one bite is fine. Boo-hoo-hoo. Wait until the dish has been withdrawn, nobody is allowed to snatch it from me. If you let this old man taste a bite, this old man can immediately die and also rest in peace contentedly. Ah. The first chef, who was the oldest, ruefully sighed. Manager Su swept a glance at this crowd of chefs who originally had no hope for Su Luo's cooking skills. Chapter 570. Temper Tantrum Appeased 8. His eyes turned to watch Su Luo's leaving rear view, muttering to himself, "A person worthy of being fancied by His Highness. Even her cooking skills are extraordinary. Her other skills are probably even more spectacular." Su Luo was completely unaware of the resulting sensation she caused. She merely carried the food container, unhurriedly walking towards the manor wing where Nangong Luyan slept. She had already apologized softly and personally washed her hands to make him soup. The matter from this time ought to pass like this, right? When she entered, he was just calmly reclining on the soft couch, with one hand supporting his forehead. He gave off a languid and worn-out feeling. "Hungry, right? Quickly come and drink some congee." Su Luo put down the food container, took out the steaming hot, threaded chicken congee and the whitebait fish soup, and reached out a hand to invite Nangong Luyan. However, Nangong Luyan only unhurriedly looked at her, then looked to the sky. His lips curled up, and righteously and confidently said, "Not eating." This really was the temperament of a child. Now he was peeved at her? Su Luo was helpless and took steps to approach him, pulling him up. "You are not allowed to act so peevish. Come have a taste of my skills. I guarantee that you have never tasted such delicious food in your life." It was not Su Luo being boastful, so extravagantly using the spirit spring water to make soup. It was only her. There still really was no other. Being dragged in front of the table by the arm by Su Luo, Nangong Luyan disdainfully glared at the simple food dishes. "Is this stuff edible? You will just use this to appease me? Hey, give you a little color and you still actually opened a dye shop. Nangong Luyan, I say enough is enough, alright." Su Luo ladled half a bowl of congee without leave and then passed him a spoon. "Hurry, drink the congee first while it is hot." "Not drinking." Nangong Luyan disagreeably turned his head away. Tell him to drink and he would drink. Was there really such a cheap matter? You have not eaten for an entire day and night. There are internal injuries and also external wounds. How can you endure it if you don't eat something? Be good, quickly drink up. I used up a lot of energy to brew it. This is all good stuff. Su Luo used a nice tone and cheerful attitude to coax him. But the temperamental big child was simply unreasonable. One could only see his head raise and a pair of black eyes burningly stare at Su Luo. "You really want me to eat it? That's only natural. You must eat it for me." Su Luo's words were righteous and upright. "Then good." Nangong Luoyun's black ink, star-like eyes stared fixedly at Su Luo. Righteously and full of conviction, he said, "You feed me, then I will eat. Otherwise, I won't eat it." Su Luo helplessly laid down the porcelain bowl. "Why is it you don't take care of your body like this? Beichen and them are all concerned about you." "Then, are you concerned about me?" Nangong Luoyun's gaze stared fixedly at Su Luo. It was serious and grave. Su Luo. Under his watching burning gaze, Su Luo wanted to say something, but hesitated. A long while later she held up the bowl. "Fine, I feed you, then I will feed you, come open your mouth." Unexpectedly, it was as if Nangong Luyan squeezed into a dead end. He stubbornly stared at Su Luo, stressing each word, said, "Then, are you concerned about me?" The corner of Su Luo's mouth pursed slightly, her eyes stared determinately at him, and a little indignantly she said, "Am I an idiot? I personally made soup for you. If this is not called concern, then what is it called? Have you ever seen me cook for any other person? Is my pair of hands only used to make food? You can be the first person to taste my skills. If you are not going to eat, then forget it." Su Luo stood up, holding the bowl and utensils, and was just about to put it back into the food container. Don't want to eat, then don't eat. Consider her good intentions wasted. What are you doing? Nangong Luyan grabbed the food protectively, blocking Su Luo from getting near it. These are all mine, you are not allowed to touch. Let go. This nervous manner of Nangong Luyan was just like a child protecting his food, childish and also cute. Chapter 571. Temper Tantrum Appeased 9. This kind of stingy appearance of his, where was that insufferably arrogant His Highness Prince Jean seen from others' eyes? Just earlier, he was peevishly saying that he wouldn't eat. But wasn't he trying to rescue his food now? Su Luo couldn't help but break into laughter. Understood, all of this is yours. If you don't finish eating it, see how I'll deal with you. Then you must feed it to me. Nangong Luyan placed the porcelain bowl in front of Su Luo, and cutely opened his rhombus-shaped red-colored lips. She truly lost to him. Su Luo resignedly accepted her fate, and picked up the porcelain bowl. Just as she was about to scoop out a mouthful and feed it to him, she suddenly thought about the last time she fed him. At that time he had a slightly aggrieved expression, as if having been neglected. Su Luo subconsciously tried a spoonful of the shredded chicken congee after testing the temperature, and only then did she move it towards the edge of Nangong's mouth. The temperature is just right. Open up. The corner of Nangong Luoyun's mouth raised into a smile. He was clearly very delighted. Su Luo being this detail-oriented showed that she truly placed his words in her heart. Amen. He kept the spoon in his mouth, while eating as he was also smiling. His handsome face was dazzlingly lit up, smiling like an idiot. You're just this easily satisfied? Su Luo passed over a piece of meat to him from the back of the whitebait fish. I'm in your heart. Nangong Luyan raised his brows in a pleased manner, as the corner of his mouth revealed a smile. His words were extremely self-assured as he declared that in a confident tone of voice. Su Luo almost wanted to ask, how do you know? But then she felt that it would expose her true thoughts. So she pretended to glance at him with an indifference gaze. Nonsense, you're just guessing randomly. I never said that before. With a guilty conscience, Su Luo slightly lowered her eyelids. Even though Su Luo didn't acknowledge it, Nangong Luyan actually did not get angry this time. He confidently glanced at Su Luo, pointed at her, and proudly declared, if you don't want others to know about it, you shouldn't do it. Su Luo, you've been exposed. Oh, I'd like to hear the details. Su Luo said with smiling eyes. When was she exposed? What was exposed? How come she herself didn't know about this? Who knew how Nangong would twist things his way? This time was not an exception. She only saw him raise his jaws with satisfaction. Not telling you. If I tell you, how can I see your thoughts next time? How can you be like this? Not gonna tell me, huh? Then you eat this by yourself. This Miss Hands just happened to be sore right now. I'm not feeding you anymore. Su Luo pretended to angry as she laid down the bowl. Then promise me that you won't leave tonight, that you'll stay here and sleep with me. Nangong Luyan once again tried to get more. His eyes were deep black pools as he unwaveringly stared fixedly at Su Luo. His noble face carried a trace of anticipation. Anticipation for his night with Su Luo. Su Luo. No. Nangong Luyan stubbornly stared at her, full of anticipation. After hesitating for a long while, Su Luo still shook her head. No, I have to go back or else my father will beat me to death. Nangong Luyan still stared at her without saying a single word. His expression was as calm as water, but his eyes were like the ashes after an ignited fire as they instantly dimmed. He stood up, expressionlessly turned around, and went inside. He laid on the bed, with his face facing the inside, and completely gave Su Luo the cold shoulder. He was silently raging and protesting. Seeing how he acted, Su Luo immediately held her hand against her head. Nangong Luyan is using this move again? But she's still affected by him. When did she forget? This man sometimes acted like a child who had not grown up. He was childish, willful, and stubborn. She was also annoyed. Why did she bother to argue with him? He was originally injured to this state. If he continued to be sullen and resentful, how could he recover from his injuries? Chapter 572. Temper Tantrum Appeased. 10. At this time, what's wrong with following along with his wishes a little? Now was not the time to be argumentative because his body was injured. Su Luo inwardly criticized herself that she ought not upset him. Afterwards, while thinking this, she slowly walked towards him. Nangong Luyan was lying on his side on the bed, his entire body giving off an angry air. The contours of his back view was coldly stiff but perfect and extraordinarily alluring. Su Luo sat down on the bed, lightly pushing him. Nangong, don't lie down, get up. Nangong Luyan moved inside a little more, continuing to ignore her and pretending she was just air. That appearance was extremely arrogant and adorable. Su Luo gave a deep sigh. She had a feeling of what it would be like to deal with her future son. Nangong Luyan, don't continue to be mad, okay? Alright. Su Luo continued to keep him company while smiling. Nangong Luyan whined twice. No. That little appearance. How was it any different from a little child not getting his candy? Extremely childish. Then tonight, I shouldn't go back is also a no? Su Luo laughingly looked at him. Having heard what was said, Nangong Luyan immediately turned around and nimbly got up. His pair of eyes watched Su Luo, flashing brilliantly like the stars in the sky. Since you want to remain with such an expression, then I will consider it reluctantly. Finished speaking, he even arrogantly lifted up his chin. Su Luo's forehead nodded slightly. She was nearly infuriated to death by him. Was there no end to this guy's shamelessness? Simply gave him an inch and he wanted a mile. Su Luo gave 2 cold humps. Dreaming, do you think that is possible? I still haven't promised to marry you yet. Why is it not possible? Last time it was like this, and moreover, inevitability, you will be my Nangong Liuyun's princess. As long as you say it, we will immediately have our wedding night. Nangong Liuyun's neck was lifted, saying it with a deadly serious expression, even saying having the wedding night, as if she was the impatient one. Su Luo vexedly glared at Nangong Luyan. How could it be the same as last time? That time, you were in so much pain, how could I walk away? It was only natural that I remained behind to accompany you. Su Luo smoothly followed. She automatically ignored the subject of the wedding night. Nangong Liuyun's long, slender finger pointed at Su Luo, and didn't speak for a long time. Finally he glared at Su Luo, nearly gnashing his teeth. Drink congee. Today, must get this girl into bed. Nangong Luyan decided from the bottom of his heart. Oh. Su Luo obediently fed him congee. With great difficulty, she finished feeding him congee. Then Su Luo asked a servant to take away the bowl and chopsticks to tidy up the place. Now she was finally had free time. Currently, Nangong Luyan was carelessly sprawled on the bed, both eyes closed as if in a deep sleep. Able to sleep was also good. Su Luo picked up the thin comforter to cover him. When her hand touched his skin, Su Luo jumped in fright. What's the matter? Why was his body temperature so cold? Seeing him motionless, and Nangong Luyan lying there straight and stiff, Su Luo's heart suddenly had a bad premonition. She also didn't know what to think. Subconsciously, she placed her finger in front of his nose. There was no breathing. Nangong Liuyun's entire body was ice cold and also he was not breathing? This discovery spread to Su Luo's brain, passing through the central nervous system. With great difficulty, she finally realized, this was a dead person. Nangong Luyan, I order you to wake up. Immediately, Su Luo's limbs weakened. She was unable to take any action. She desperately shook Nangong Luyan, but his body remained stiff and motionless, with his breathing completely stopped. Su Luo's heart throbbed with violent badump sounds. Never have a person's death was able to make her nervous until now. No, Nangong Luyan must not die. Su Luo nimbly turned over suddenly, like boldly taking the initiative, and directly sat on Nangong Liuyun's body. She pried his mouth open, leaned over and tried to give him air through mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Chapter 573. Temper Tantrum Appeased. 11. At an angle Su Luo could not see, Nangong Liuyun's pair of shocked eyes were opened slightly, but very quickly, restored to its original state. He would never have imagined faking death would have this kind of treatment. He became completely stupid from satisfaction. However, his speed was extremely fast. It was in the blink of an eye, therefore, Su Luo completely didn't detect it. Su Luo boldly sat astride his body while giving him mouth-to-mouth, and also massaged his heart using CPR methods. However, 5 minutes passed, yet Nangong Luyun still hadn't improved the slightest. Moreover, his body was even more stiff than before. Su Luo became anxious and shouted at the people outside the door. She knew the steward was just outside the door waiting. Something is wrong with Nangong Luyun. Quickly call the doctor. Quick! Su Luo yelled to him. The steward pushed open the door and entered, seeing the future princess so boldly sitting astride Nangong Luyun. Such a passionate scene immediately blinded him, and his old face had a shocked expression. Why haven't you quickly gone to look for a doctor? Su Luo angrily roared at him. Doctor? Okay, this old servant will immediately go. The steward hurriedly closed the door securely, his urgent sound of agreement coming through. However, the old steward was not the least bit worried. On the contrary, he was elatedly stroking his few whiskers of goat-like beard. Never imagined, really would never have imagined, the future princess was so bold. In all likelihood, not long after, a son would be added to the manor. But a princess being too bold was also not good. His Highness had such a strong, robust body and still needed to look for a doctor. Oh dear. The steward stroked his few goat-like whiskers of a beard, walking without any rush. With kind intentions, he decided to delay more time for the prince and his future princess. If Su Luo knew this matter was misunderstood to such an extent by the steward, perhaps the veins on her forehead would explode, right? Su Luo was completely unaware that her image in the steward's heart was that robust. Now, all of her attention was focused on Nangong Liuyun's body. Just when Su Luo was so anxious as to be at her wit's end, she saw Nangong Luyun weakly open his eyes. His clear, monochrome phoenix eyes were half opened, bewilderedly looking at Su Luo. Su Luo was frightened as well as overjoyed, and also angry. What's the matter with you? All of a sudden, your body was stiff and you were not breathing. Are you trying to scare a person to death? Nangong Liuyun's complexion was pale. He seemed to have a gossamer thread of energy. He seemed bewildered and innocently looked at Su Luo. What just happened? The him right now. Where was that liveliness from just a moment ago when he was being arrogant and adorable? He simply looked as if a gentle wind could blow him down. Weaker than fragile younger sister Lin 1. Suddenly, Su Luo's heart soured, and was also somewhat worried. She very carefully and gently supported him to sit up. Can it be you aren't even a bit clear about what happened? Don't know. On Nangong Liuyun's wan face, a pair of limpid eyes were half opened and half closed. Seeing it made a person's heart sour. Just a moment ago, your entire person stopped breathing. Moreover, your entire body was ice cold, just like the same. I was scared and frozen stiff by you. Su Luo wiped at the perspiration on her forehead, asking him with deep concern. Now, how do you feel? Do you have any place that doesn't feel well? I do. Nangong Liuyun's pair of deep, pitch-black as ink eyes unblinkingly looked at her. Where? Nangong Luyun pulled at her hand and placed it on his chest. He looked at her weakly and without strength. This place doesn't feel well. Chest hurts? Could it be a heart attack? The heart suddenly stopped dead? Su Luo had a startled expression on her face, her mouth muttering words to herself. Nangong Luyun carefully looked at her, a puzzled expression flashing through his eyes. Heart attack? The heart suddenly stopped dead? What were these terms? He, as the grand and stately His Highness Prince Jin, had never heard of these terms. Now Su Luo had an expression of suddenly having seen the light. So it was a heart attack. No wonder just a moment ago, you suddenly lost consciousness. 1. Younger sister Lin. The Lin means forest, so this is literally some younger sister of the forest. I am guessing this is referencing a fragile younger sister in Chinese pop culture. I have no clues off. Feel free to Google her. Chapter 574. Temper Tantrum Appeased 12. Nangong completely hadn't anticipated that his pretense had seemingly become the real thing. Consequently, he could only continue to pretend to be in poor health. It turns out I actually have a heart disease. What the heck was this expression? Su Luo solemnly nodded. Yes, also, there aren't decent doctors here. I also can't perform surgery. What's to be done that will be good? Nangong Luyan cleverly blinked his eyes, then blinked again. He was the grand and stately His Highness Prince Jin, of great erudition and scholarship. From the heavens above, he knew about astronomy, to the ground below, he knew about geography. Now, at this moment, he completely couldn't continue this conversation. Su Luo again muttered in distress to herself. Isn't this a world with magic? An illness like heart disease that ordinary people suffer from still exists? This is not rational. Nangong Liyun. What was his little princess saying in the end? He discovered that if he dismantled her words, he would recognize every word, but when combined together, it was unintelligible. Nangong Luyan almost cried due to the feeling of inferiority. After Su Luo finished muttering to herself, the steward had also finally brought the imperial physician. This imperial physician looked quite close with Su Luo's mental image of an imperial court physician. His eyebrows and hair were all white, with kind brows and pleasant eyes. He seemed affable and also excellent in the art of healing. After imperial physician Li finished checking Nangong Liuyun's pulse, he stroked his white beard, pondering for a long time without speaking. Su Luo grew worried as she nervously and apprehensively stared fixedly at this imperial court physician who had brilliant medical expertise. Imperial physician Li closed his eyes and muttered to himself for a long while, then sighed deeply. Su Luo's heart was really apprehensive, and with his sigh, her heart was alarmed and her body jumped. Physician Li, what's the matter with His Highness Prince Jin's illness? Is it grave? Su Luo pointed to Nangong Luyan, who was lying in bed with a pale complexion and gossamery breath. The corner of Physician Li's mouth pursed slightly, but thanks to his long and thick white beard, it nicely concealed his slip-up. His Highness Prince Jin's illness. Imperial Physician Li glanced at Nangong Luyan enigmatically, then glanced away. He lifted his eyes to the sky. Difficult. Su Luo's heart became even more nervous. Perhaps her inauspicious crow beak had hit the mark. It truly was heart disease? Also, the congenital kind of heart disease? Under Su Luo's anxious gaze, only then did Physician Li compromise to say, this illness of His Highness Prince Jin is very strange. He cannot get angry, even more he shouldn't be furious, he must maintain a good mood. What he wants, give it to him. Physician Li stealthily looked at Nangong Luyan from the corner of his eyes, and the latter nodded with satisfaction. Su Luo scowled. Imperial Physician Li once again stroked his white beard, feigning being enigmatic. At this moment, the patient's condition is the most grave, he cannot be left alone. Otherwise, if his illness worsens and there is nobody to attend to him, the consequences will be too unthinkable. Imperial Physician Li lifted his eyes towards the sky. Once again, he stealthily glanced at Nangong Luyan's body from the corner of his eyes. The extremely weak Nangong Luyan reclined on the mattress. A clearly defined finger extended from the quilt at an angle Su Luo could not see and gave a thumbs up towards Imperial Physician Li, expressing he would be rewarded extremely well. As a result, the expression on Imperial Physician Li's face clearly became more sorrowful. He earnestly and worriedly warned Su Luo repeatedly. Whatever requests His Highness has, try to satisfy it as much as possible. No, it must be satisfied, otherwise if His Highness was provoked again to have an outbreak of this illness, then the consequences, alas. Even if it was the De Luo immortal one, descending to the mortal world, he would also not be able to save this situation. Originally, Su Luo was not someone so easily deceived for good or bad. In her previous life, she was also very astute. But her mistake was that, in the beginning, Su Luo had set up the frame for herself, firmly believing that Nangong Luyan had heart disease. These words that Imperial Physician Li said could also be translated as having to remain modest and keep cool. The mind must be at peace, and could not be subjected to provocation. This was truly that the more you heard it, the closer it fit, the more you listened to it, the more fitting it seemed, Basically you didn't need to doubt it. 1. De Luo Immortal. In the Taoist cultivation methods, this is the highest plane they want to achieve. Basically at this stage the person would not be restrained by time nor space, and could happily go wherever and whenever. This is also the name of an immortal in the imperial court in the heavens. I'm not familiar with all this, so if you have more information about him, then feel free to let us know in the comment section. Chapter 575. Temper Tantrum Appeased 13. After sending off Imperial Physician Li, Su Luo looked at Nangong Luoyun in a daze. The expression she watched him with was full of heartache and distress. Nangong Luoyun's heart gave periodic bursts of guilt. Just when he was debating whether to tell the truth or not, Su Luo's next action made him completely give up this idea. One could only see Su Luo sit at his side, both hands wrapped tightly around his lean waist, her cheek stuck to his chest where his heart was jumping powerfully. Nangong Luoyun's figure paused. Even though he would often hug and embrace Luo girl, but this was the first time she took the initiative to hug him. The words at the tip of Nangong Luoyun's tongue at once slipped back into his belly. Su Luo listened to the sound of his strong and steady heartbeat, her voice carrying a touch of gentleness and tender feelings. Tonight, I will remain behind to keep you company. Nangong Luoyun's figure was jolted again. He never expected the result of the trick of feigning illness was this effective. Before, at the time he was fed food, it was because Su Luo said that kind of words which gave him this inspiration. So he came up with this trick to make her stay. But he never expected afterwards he really didn't need to act. His Luo girl had already continued and cooperated with his act. Only Nangong Luoyun's heart was afraid. If his family's Luo girl was to find out the truth, just thinking about it made his heart shudder, really made people extremely not look forward to it. Ah, what's wrong? Is it because your heart still doesn't feel well? Su Luo's keen senses felt his body tremble. She impatiently pushed him away. In the end, what's wrong? Chest. Was afraid. Ah. Nangong Luoyun plaintively gazed at her, afraid that after the truth was discovered, Su Luo would refuse to acknowledge him again. Your heart is hurting again? Alas, can you tell me why you are so plagued with such misfortunes? The illness of your legs hasn't been cured. Your heart also added another illness. Su Luo looked at him with endless sympathy and extreme tenderness. Nangong Luoyun really made her feel exceedingly regretful. Su Luo decided that the days from now on she must treat him nicely. Under the gaze of her pair of clear and monochrome eyes, no matter how thick Nangong Luoyun's skin was, he still felt guilty. He opened his mouth, wanted to explain something, and found that he didn't know where to start. It's fine, don't speak anymore, lie down and rest well. Su Luo, with deep concern, helped him lie down and gently covered him with a quilt. You should be at ease. I will stay by your side to take care of you until you have recovered from your illness. You should sleep properly. Nangong Luoyun was as obedient as a child. He only watched her quietly and allowed her to settle him. Seeing this innocent and bewildered Nangong Luoyun, Su Luo's heart soured slightly. How insufferably arrogant the former His Highness Prince Jin was. But now, he was lying on the bed weakly with gossamery breath, really making people's heart hurt. Under Su Luo's gaze, with that kind of heart-aching distress and sadness, only now did Nangong Luoyun realize that he had played this game until it was too big. Wait until the truth was exposed. Would he be ripped to shreds by Su Luo? Just thinking about it made him shudder from fear. He might as well close his eyes and take a nap. Nightfall, it was pitch black all around. The servants had already lighted the candles inside the room. The night gradually became darker. Su Luo was still sitting at Nangong Luoyun's bedside, quietly watching him. The contours of his face was firm and determined, hard and strong. It was the most perfect and exquisite outline of any facial features that were combined together. This face was simply too poetic and picturesque, a complexion that could overturn the world. Looking at it couldn't help but make a person become engrossed in it, and it was hard to free oneself again. The more one looked, the more mesmerizing it became. The more one looked, the more one sank into oblivion. Staring fixedly at Nangong Luoyun's serene sleeping countenance, Su Luo watched like an imbecile. with an infatuated and intoxicated expression in the depth of her eyes that she herself was unaware of. Nangong Luyan had maintained his steady breathing all along, but in fact he hadn't slept since the beginning. Chapter 576. Temper Tantrum Appeased 14. His phoenix eyes opened slightly, seeing Su Luo's earnest appearance. Nangong Luyan seemed to still be hazy from sleepiness and mumbled a few sounds. So cold, so cold. Cold? Su Luo became anxious. She held Nangong Luoyun's hand, and felt that his hand was ice-cold and stiff. I'll go look for the doctor. Su Luo was so worried that she just turned around and left. However, before she could leave, a slender arm suddenly extended from within the covers and wrapped around her waist. In the second that it took for the sky to spin and the earth to whirl, Su Luo had already tumbled into bed, leaning on her side. Nangong Luoyun's arm hooked her waist, hugging her very tightly and unceasingly mumbled, "Cold, so cold." He also matched his words by shivering from head to foot. As if Su Luo was a warm comforter, once he hugged it, he was unable to let go. Su Luo struggled nonstop. "Nangong Luyan, you let me go. I need to go look for a doctor for you. If you continue like this, it will be bad." Su Luo recalled the situation this morning, when Nangong Luoyun's heart suddenly stopped beating, and immediately, her heart was alarmed, making her body jump from extreme anxiety. But Nangong Luyan only responded by holding her more tightly. He had imprisoned Su Luo tightly in his embrace, not letting her have a threat of possibility of escaping. Recalling Imperial Physician Li's instructions during the day, he told her not to provoke Nangong Luyan into being angry, that she must meet his requests as much as possible. Thinking up to here, Su Luo abandoned her struggle. "Okay, I won't go, I will stay to keep you company. But you must let me check your illness." And what made her feel strange was that Nangong Luoyun's body gradually started to relax, and the warmth also gradually returned to his body. This made the tip of Su Luo's heart have a strange feeling. Could it be her body actually had the ability to control his illness? Or was it that his body had the ability to warm up in a flash? It couldn't help but be said, "Miss Su, you hit upon the truth. Only you could control Nangong Luoyun's heart disease." But Su Luo really didn't know this. She was hugged by Nangong Luoyun, her cheek pressed to his wide, solid chest, and the sound of his steady and strong heartbeats reached her ear. The two of them maintained this posture for a very long time. The night had already deepened, and Su Luo's sober eyes were half opened and half closed. Gradually, her gaze became fuzzy, sinking into a swamp like the dark night. Seeing her sleeping, and hearing her steady and leveled breathing, in the dark night, Nangong Luoyun suddenly opened that pair of pitch-black as ink eyes. He tenderly caressed her delicate cheek, a trace of happy but vexed expression flashing across his eyes. What ought he to do now that would be best? This lie seemed to get bigger and bigger. He thought for a long time and couldn't come up with a countermeasure. Nangong Luoyun could only helplessly shake his head. He tightly embraced the girl in his arms, his jaw placed on her head and pressed against her soft hair. He fell into a deep sleep. For a night, they slept deeply. In the east, the first ray of the sun rose, the dawn slicing through the darkness. The first light of dawn broke through, carrying gentle, orange rays of light. It gave people a soft, gentle feeling of intoxication. Su Luo opened her eyes, and met a pair of beautiful eyes containing a smile. Nangong Luoyun half supported his body, his face lying on the side as he looked at her, directly facing her with his smiling, extremely handsome countenance that could charm all living things. First thing in the morning, she saw this gorgeous, handsome face, and it made a person's heart feel good for no reason. Su Luo sat up, smilingly looked at him. "How do you feel? Is your body a little better?" Nangong Luoyun's long arm, in one move, had pressed her to his chest. He leaned over, dropping a meticulous kiss like the breeze and gentle rain. It was like goose feathers, light and soft. "It tickles." Su Luo unconsciously pushed at him. She was still not used to touching him this intimately touching. "Then, I'll give you something that doesn't itch." Nangong Luoyun turned over, and had Su Luo under his body. Seeing Su Luo's stunned expression, with her red lips wide open, Chapter 577. Temper Tantrum Appeased 15. The corner of Nangong Liuyun's mouth hooked into a devilish smile. A soft and warm pair of lips pressed down. His movements were full of unimaginable tenderness. She opened her eyes wide. And in front of her eyes was a magnified, handsome face. A handsome, godlike face that was also like an uninhibitedly wild man who was just unruffled. Was kissing her. Woman, concentrate a little. Nangong Liuyun's pair of boiling hot palms were placed above Su Luo's pair of black eyes. In the next moment, Su Luo unconsciously closed her eyes. Between lips and tongue was the fragrance of dragon saliva that he carried. Now his dragon energy was like a fierce tiger. How was this like yesterday's sickly with only gossamery breath? Just when Nangong Liuyun's eyes became blurred with passionate movement, Su Luo suddenly returned to her senses and pushed him away. You shouldn't. Su Luo grasped for breath. Now your body is like this, how can it endure such actions? I order you to lie down and be well behaved. The veins on Nangong Liuyun's forehead burst out. Being thwarted, he crossed his hands behind his back. This time, he deeply felt what it meant to shoot himself in the foot. Nangong Liuyun's pitch black as ink, star-like eyes seriously looked at Su Luo. I don't have an illness, really, believe me. Su Luo rolled her eyes at him. Yesterday you were so ill like that, today. How could you say you are well and be well? Don't quibble, be well behaved and go lie down. Wait a minute, I'll call for the imperial physician. If you are sick, then treat the illness. If you aren't sick, then we'll prevent the illness. Nangong Liuyun depressingly hung his head down. Su Luo ignored him and directly stood up. After she had finished freshening up, she wanted to invite the imperial physician over, but Nangong Liuyun refused. Again, I don't have an illness, why invite the imperial physician over? Don't tell me you don't know that they are all charlatans? Charlatans? Then you are saying, yesterday's charlatan was speaking rubbish? Then, I don't need to be totally submissive to your wishes, and let you do whatever you please? Su Luo's reaction was very fast. Nangong Liuyun. Su Luo asked Nangong Liuyun. You really don't have an illness? I really don't have an illness. Nangong Liuyun miserably looked at Su Luo, really wanting to eat her up. Since you are not ill, then I will go home. Su Luo was all smiles as her hand went to pinch Nangong Liuyun's tender, fair and handsome face that could overturn the world. That face was really good looking. The feel of it was also especially good, exquisitely silky and smooth. She could pinch it 100 times and not get tired of it. Nangong Liuyun depressingly stared at Su Luo. I have an illness. Nangong Liuyun burst out with his fist smashing the pillow. His family's Luo girl, why was her brain so quick? He was almost unable to deceive her anymore. It made Nangong Liuyun happy but also depressed. In the end, finally, they still invited the imperial physician from yesterday to come. Under the circumstances of Nangong Liuyun's entire face being dark, the honorable imperial physician stated, His Highness Prince Jin's circulation is dry and heated, easy to get angry and overheat. Miss, you must take care of him well. Don't let him overheat, then he will be fine. Only now did Nangong Liuyun's expression improve a little. He nodded towards the imperial physician. Now you can get lost. The imperial physician hurriedly lowered his head and walked out. His Highness Prince Jin's powerful pressure made it nearly impossible for him to breathe. He clearly understood that if he didn't follow His Highness Prince Jin's expression to take action, the consequences were too horrible to contemplate. Miss Su, this old man can only let you down. But the honorable imperial physician was also curious. His Highness Prince Jin had always cut down and killed people decisively, callously and heartlessly. Now, in order to make a young lady stay by his side, he actually feigned illness. This was a huge piece of gossip that would startle the world. But if he spread it out, then he would lose his life. Being an imperial physician was very difficult, very difficult. Only now had he finally persuaded himself to keep his mouth closed, not allowing himself to mention a word. The honorable imperial physician hurriedly left, whereas Su Luo thus justifiably remained behind at Prince Jin's royal manor at Nangong Liuyun's side. Chapter 578 Traveling to the Southern Mountains. 1. Su Luo had originally planned to leave on the second day. But how could she resist Nangong Liuyun's all kinds of acting shamelessly cute and pretending to be pitiful? One must know that when it came to Nangong Liuyun's two-faced side, he had incomparable potential. In front of him, Su Luo could only surrender. As a result, it kept dragging on and on until it reached the 7th day. I will really need to go now. Having left for so many days, my dad probably already has gone crazy. I want to avoid other things from happening. Su Luo helplessly said. Of course, if I were to move out to live, then I would have more freedom. Only then did Nangong Luyun leisurely toss a single sentence at her. If you want to leave, it is possible. You must accompany this king to the southern mountains. Originally, they had already agreed to go to the southern mountains, only with the appearance of Nangong Liuyun's situation. It then got delayed. Su Luo was disdainful of the foul atmosphere at Su Manor. Nangong Luyun was disdainful of Su Manor's irksome presence. Therefore, the two people were in agreement, and immediately decided to head towards the southern mountains. If it was good, Su Luo would search for an opportunity, as fast as possible, to quickly move out. It was because she was already fed up with Su Manor and Su Xian. After she moved out, then what the eyes don't see, the heart won't grieve over. The dragon-scaled horse's speed had always been fast. Adding the spirit spring water as a reward to increase the speed. The entire journey was as fast as lightning. It was so fast as if they were about to fly. Not long after, the dragon-scaled horse had brought Su Luo and Nangong Luyun to the summit of the southern mountains. Southern mountains, these two words' reputation were well known to a lot of people. However, only a few people had the opportunity to enter the southern mountains, because this place was His Highness Prince Jin's exclusive private property. At the most conspicuous place at the summit, there stood a gold and jade palace in glorious splendor. Standing in front of the imposing, lofty and large palace gates, Su Luo was slightly shocked. This luxurious atmosphere and incomparably gorgeous building was countless times more exquisite than the imperial palace. Was this truly Nangong Liuyun's? Was he not afraid of his own father's envy and shunning? Su Luo turned around, staring at Nangong Luyun. Is this the little courtyard you told me about? Before, Su Luo had really believed it was going to be a small courtyard. At most, it would be as big as Su Manor. Who could have imagined that it was actually this huge? Nangong Luyun very innocently nodded his head, and even gestured. Is this not a small courtyard? It is only this minuscule in size. Su Luo was speechless. She rolled her eyes towards the sky. Between the two of them, there was indeed a deep divide like the Marianas Trench. How could this even be called a courtyard? This was obviously a luxurious and grand palace, okay? Also, compared to the imperial palace, this was several times more exquisite and gorgeous. The space it occupied was also several times that of a normal palace. She only wanted a place for one person to live. Not knowing what kind of evil tastes Nangong Liuyun's also had, to actually use gold bricks to cover it and white jade as stairs. It was extremely extravagant. The most important thing was that this courtyard occupied a third of the southern mountains, and he actually still said it was a small courtyard. Come, this king will give you a tour. Once you see it, you will definitely like it. Nangong Luyun skillfully pulled Su Luo's delicate and soft hands, and walked towards the interior. On the two sides of the great hall, there were 2 rows of servants who waited respectfully. Although these people were servants, however, every one of them had pretty features, with a tough and stocky build. Their bodies were tall and straight, full of energy, as energetic as a dragon with a tiger's ferocity. Every person was picked from 1 in 10,000, not a single one was simple. Su Luo secretly raised an eyebrow. It was only a courtyard that he occasionally visited. These servants might not even see Nangong once a year. However, all of them were carefully selected. There wasn't the slightest bit of carelessness. It could clearly be seen how high Nangong Liuyun's standards were normally. Now, all of them respectfully stood there submissively under Nangong Liuyun's pressure, and due to the respect of an expert's might that came from his entire body, they did not even dare to breathe, let alone lift their eyes up. Chapter 579 Traveling to the Southern Mountains 2. The servants stood in 2 rows. Between them, a thick and soft pure woolen carpet was spread out. Nangong Luoyun pulled Su Luo along and walked as if nobody else was present. It was truly luxurious and imposing, giving people an elated feeling for no reason at all. The courtyard was huge. Pavilions and kiosks were arranged in picturesque disorder. The small rivers murmured continuously in the rock garden. Su Luo looked while walking. When she neared the waterfall of the rock garden, suddenly, she had a kind of peculiar feeling. This place. Su Luo stopped her footsteps, raised her eyes and looked at Nangong Luoyun, as if it's not the same. How is it different? Nangong Luoyun's handsome, bright face beamingly looked at her. Spiritual energy. Su Luo nodded her head with certainty. The Southern Mountains' spiritual energy was originally very rich. However, this place, the spiritual energy, compared to its surroundings, is much richer. In all likelihood, cultivating here will certainly be half the work and twice the effect. Nangong Luoyun, having heard what was said, his face held a smile, and he lovingly and indulgently patted Su Luo's head. Worthy of being the girl this king fancies, sensitivity level is really high. At one glance, you are able to see the crucial point. I hit the mark. Su Luo looked at him, pleasantly surprised. Right. Nangong Luoyun pulled Su Luo to sit on the yellow rosewood chair on one side. The spiritual energy here is indeed a little more concentrated than other places. From now on you can cultivate here. Your progress will absolutely be lightning fast. I still haven't decided if I want it or not. Su Luo indifferently said a sentence. This kind of grand and imposing palace, occupying a third of the entire Southern Mountains area, she certainly cannot afford it. Nangong Luoyun's pair of bright, diamond-like eyes smilingly looked at Su Luo. It seemed as if he could see through to Su Luo's inner thoughts, as he smilingly said, I am not selling it to you, just take it as a gift from this king, okay? Okay. The grand and stately His Highness Prince Jean always did it his own way. He had always used an assertive, certain and commanding tone, and never considered others' thoughts, and had never asked other people okay. Only Su Luo could have this kind of special treatment. This is even more not okay. Su Luo resolutely refused, straightforwardly speaking the truth. Such a precious gift, if we were to break up in the future, wouldn't I have to return it? This is too inconvenient, better not to have it. Once these words were out, Nangong Luoyun's face that originally was brimming with a glittering smile, immediately turned black. His pair of star-like eyes very fiercely stared at Su Luo, the flame of fury beginning to spread. Cough cough. Su Luo knew she was wrong, quietly coughed a few times, and pulled at Nangong Luoyun's sleeves to apologize. It was only a figure of speech. How could you have taken it seriously? I was just joking. Nangong Luoyun snorted. His wide palm turned and gripped Su Luo's delicate and soft hands, clenching them very tightly. His strength was so great that Su Luo sucked in a mouthful of cold air. Joking? Nangong Luoyun's eyes dangerously narrowed. These kind of matters, never ever joke about it. Oh, understood, quickly let go, it hurts. Su Luo's eyebrows wrinkled from the pain. No, it's painful? Nangong Luoyun's eyes were distant with implied fury. Only with pain will you learn your lesson. I know. I will remember it as if it was carved into my heart, extremely deep. Quickly let me go, being pinched by you, it really hurts to death. Su Luo admitted her mistakes very quickly. However, she rolled her eyes in her heart. Now, she merely made an analogy, and he became this furious. Then if they truly broke up in the future, then he would. Su Luo cast him a glance that contained lingering fear, who knew that Nangong Luoyun's line of sight also turned to here, and the two of them met head-on. Due to Su Luo having a guilty conscience, her gaze rapidly moved away, but Nangong Luoyun's hand was even faster than her moving gaze. Chapter 580. Traveling to the Southern Mountains 3. His finger, with the bone clearly outlined, lifted up Su Luo's chin, and he carelessly humphed lightly. Girl, you seem to have other ideas? Su Luo repeatedly waved her hands, forcing a smile. Nonsense talk. How could I have other ideas? Really funny, haha. Nangong Luoyun was looking at Su Luo as if gazing at an idiot. Su Luo also felt that her own performance seemed idiotic. She gloomily stroked the back of her head. Didn't know why when being in contact with Nangong Luoyun, her prized intelligence would often run off to somewhere else. Su Luo saw Nangong Luoyun staring at her frostily, and as a result, she hurriedly changed the topic. What is the price of this courtyard? I do not want to receive it for free. Nangong Luoyun had both hands folded behind him, and contentedly leaned back into the chair. He raised an eyebrow to look at her. 49 pieces of green-colored crystal stones. 49 pieces of green-colored crystal stones? This was indeed not expensive. If the amethyst crystal fish worked a little harder to spit out a cyan or blue-colored crystal stone, very quickly the debt would be settled. Su Luo smilingly said, "This price is fairly inexpensive, come, let's do a simple and direct transaction." Nangong Luoyun, however, only swayed the forefinger of his right hand. No, the money has already been paid, doesn't need to be paid again. Already been paid? Su Luo was stunned. How was it that she didn't know? Do you still remember that matter when we went to the Sunset Mountain Range? Nangong Luoyun smilingly looked at Su Luo, crafty as a fox. How intelligent was Su Luo? Simply a little hint, and she would thoroughly understand. She looked at him. Are you talking about the 50 green-colored crystal stones that were used last time to treat your illness? Smart. Nangong Luoyun rubbed her head, as if praising his most beloved spirit pet. Then, you still owe me a single piece of green-colored crystal stone. Why is it you don't simply take out 50 green-colored crystal stones? Then, wouldn't that be settling this clearly and completely? Su Luo suspiciously and puzzlingly asked. Who wants to be settled with you completely? Nangong Luoyun said it through his nose, as his eyes flashed with brilliant lights like the stars, profoundly mysterious, making it impossible for others to fathom. Only his voice was very light and also obscure, so Su Luo did not hear it clearly. What? Su Luo curiously asked. Only 49, then only 49. What is the relationship between us? How could this king profit out of your crystal stones? Nangong Luoyun deadly earnestly said. Then it's fine, give me the other piece of green-colored crystal stone. Su Luo smilingly spread open her palm. Don't have it. Nangong Luoyun straightforwardly and firmly shook his head. Who are you, the grand and stately His Highness Prince Jin? How could you not be able to bring out even a single piece of green-colored crystal stone? Who are you kidding? Su Luo joked with him. If you want a person, then there is one. If you want a crystal stone, then there is none. Nangong Luoyun's phoenix-like pupils raised slightly, smiling like a crafty fox. Why does it have to be like this? It's not like you can't afford it. Su Luo truly could not understand. What was Nangong Luoyun doing? Nangong Luoyun fixedly looked at her, a trace of seriousness flashing through his deep, beautiful eyes. Only after a long time did he sigh. Because like this, another layer would be added to our relationship. Among all kinds of tangled and complex relationships, the creditor and the debtor's relationship was the most secure. If he gave the full price of 50 crystal stones, Luo girl would directly take all the crystal stones, and then it would be as she said, everything would be settled cleanly and clearly. But as the debtor, it was different, to return or not, the crucial point was on him. As long as he did not return it, then their relationship would never be erased. Su Luo thought and finally understood the tricky road in this path. Suddenly, her figure became motionless, as she silently gazed at him. You? Why bother going to the trouble? His gentle feelings. At first glance, nothing could be seen, but bit by bit, it came together to form a single thread. Finally, like a crisscrossing net binding her inside, she was deeply absorbed yet unable to free herself. Chapter 581. Traveling to the Southern Mountains for. Really touching, isn't it? Is there a kind of impulsive urge to immediately marry this king? Nangong Luoyun leaned close to her with a smile that was devilishly charming and alluring. The time it took to speak, a warm breath lingered over her ear, hazy and vague. Dream on, the trial run of 3 months haven't started yet. Don't go indulging in flights of fancy. Su Luo pushed away his handsome face that leaned close. But Nangong Luyan insisted on leaning in close. As a result, the to and fro tussle between the two began. However now, Steward Wang of this courtyard just happened to carry something over. When he saw this scene, his foot stumbled and he nearly tumbled to the ground. Seeing someone come over, Su Luo immediately released Nangong Luyan. She sat up straight and still with an appearance of a dignified, wise and virtuous woman. Nangong Luyan sent a displeased glare towards Steward Wang. Immediately, Steward Wang's legs softened. His figure that was steadied with great difficulty, bent once again. He directly sat down on the ground where he stopped. How do you handle things? Nangong Luyan slanted him a harsh gaze. That imposing manner disdainful of the world truly terrified a person. The cold sweat on Steward Wang's face rolled down with a rustling sound. Su Luo, seeing this, really couldn't bear it. Nangong Luyan, this hooligan that despised worldly conventions, with a smiling expression across his face, how could he be that terrifying? Why would each and every servant act as if he was Satan? Each and every one of them was scared to death of him? In fact, how could Miss Su know? Nangong Luyan had always treated others without faking politeness. Only to her would he be this kind of pampering and indulgent. Steward Wang crawled up with great difficulty, with small steps, ran to in front of Nangong Luyan, and respectfully handed over the folded document he carried. Nangong Luyan gave a careless, light humph. Immediately, Steward Wang's legs suddenly softened again. Nangong Luyan merely glanced at it, and then placed the folded document into Su Luo's hand. Put it in a good place. Su Luo accepted it and took a look. It turned out to be the deed for the land and the house in this courtyard. The entire southern mountains is yours? Su Luo looked at the marking of the land deed, and she was immediately awed. It is more accurate to say now the entire southern mountains is yours. Nangong Luyan beamingly looked at her, his eyes carrying a tenderness that even he hadn't discovered yet. Isn't this too precious? Su Luo raised the thin piece of deed in her hand. You saved this king's life. Do you feel that this king's life couldn't be compared to a small southern mountains? Nangong Luyan's eyes narrowed dangerously, casting a glance at Su Luo. Su Luo was also not a very sloppy person. Since Nangong Luyan said it like this, then she would not be polite and accept it. Whereas Steward Wang was on the side, with a pair of eyes staring fixedly at Su Luo, itching to stare a hole into her body. Was the world changing too quickly? Or had he stayed too long in the deep mountains and the ancient forest? His Highness, who always regarded women as nothing, would bring a woman here. Moreover, without saying anything further, he would give the deed to the southern mountains to her? This was the deed to southern mountains. Ah, southern mountains. Nangong Luoyun's indifferent gaze swept across Steward Wang's body. Steward Wang immediately had a period of shrinking in fear. He hurriedly withdrew the emotional gaze he had on Su Luo's body, seeing the future Princess Jean. Nangong Luyan said indifferently, "The future Princess Jean?" Steward Wang had shock written across his entire face. But Su Luo frowned, just about to say something, but who knew that Steward Wang's reaction would be very quick. He directly kneeled and kowtowed to Su Luo, directly calling out Princess. Must you create this misunderstanding for everyone? Su Luo coldly cast a glance at Nangong Luyan. On the contrary, this matter will occur sooner or later. Addressing you earlier to get accustomed to it is also good. Nangong Luoyun's mood seemed to be pretty good. As for the form of address, wait until Luo girl became accustomed to being called Princess Jean as expected. She would then become his. Chapter 582, Traveling to the Southern Mountains 5. Consequently, Steward Wang, who had accepted Nangong Luoyun's suggestion, after he returned, the first thing he would do would be gather everyone to change how they address her. The concentrated spiritual energy in front of her made Su Luo feel too embarrassed to take it easy. With Su Qing, this bomb, suspended above her forehead, Su Luo therefore had a greater feeling of pressure that repeatedly occurred. Nangong Luyan and her sat apart at both ends of the lawn. They started to circulate their spirit force to begin cultivating. Su Luo sat cross-legged with both eyes tightly closed. She was thoroughly immersed in cultivation, completely unaware of what this evening was. She first cultivated the basics of her fire element, whereas the her in her space was constantly cultivating her space element. Thanks to that piece of strange spirit rock, countless flames from the Cave of Flames were brought back to supply Su Luo with fire for her cultivation. Last time, Su Luo broke through to the realm of the Flaming Spring. During these few days of cultivation, Su Luo could feel the faint signs of a breakthrough again. Sure enough, after 2 weeks of cultivation, Su Luo successfully advances to the Flaming River stage. The range that she could release her flames in, compared to the Flaming Spring, was 5 times as large. The her in her space was also not idle. Last time, in the battle with Su Qing, she accidentally comprehended the second layer of the great dimensional imprint, the nothingness of space. But this nothingness of space was really too small, way too small. Su Luo saw the jade piece the venerable divine dragon had given her. Nothingness of space was demonstrated inside it. It was so vast as to be limitless, to the point of nearly being an independent world. In this independent world, the venerable divine dragon was just like a king. Just like a ruler, he could control the speed and gravity of this space. But Su Luo's nothingness of space right now was small as the size of her embracing arms. Additionally, she was unable to do anything at all in it. She had offended so many people, just one family, and she was unable to guard against them. This jade piece, who knew when it would be needed to save her life once. Therefore, Su Luo decided to use everything to finish studying all the cultivation methods inside this jade piece. The time of cultivation passed very quickly. When Su Luo opened her eyes again, the color of the sky faintly shone with the dawn. At her side, Nangong Luyan sat cross-legged, both eyes tightly closed, as if his cultivation was at a critical juncture. Su Luo didn't disturb him. She got up quietly to walk out. The early morning air was especially good. Su Luo had both hands behind her as she unhurriedly strolled in the courtyard. Suddenly, she discovered that the surroundings seemed to have a trace of movement. She carefully listened and found that the sound was coming from outside the wall. A soft, constant breathing sound. It ought to belong to humans. Moreover, it was also not alone. Su Luo was bewildered. So early in the morning, who would appear at the foot of this wall? The more she thought, the more puzzled she became. Su Luo whirled her body and rose, landing gracefully on the top of the wall. Sure enough, underneath the wall sat 2 people. 1 man and 1 woman. When she saw these 2 individuals, Su Luo immediately laughed. Su Luo did not have many acquaintances in this different world. Yet she was quite familiar with both of these individuals. Hey, you 2 people, what are you doing here? Su Luo sat on top of the wall, unhurriedly swaying her legs, watching these 2 people with a ghost of a smile. How is it you are here? In the hazy morning light, Lu Ruahua was just engrossed in her cultivation, and didn't expect to be woken by someone. She raised her eyes to look and saw a woman sitting on the wall who made her gnash her teeth in hatred. She was watching her, full of interest. Lu Ruahua then exploded with a loud shout on the spot. Lu Ruahua's voice immediately roused Lu Qingfeng, who was equally immersed in his cultivation. He opened his eyes, and when he saw Su Luo, a trace of fury flashed through his eyes. Do you know where this is? You actually have the guts to appear at the top of the wall. Su Luo still hadn't questioned them yet, and Lu Ruahua had already showered her with a long speech. Chapter 583. The Deed to Southern Mountain 1. Lu Ruahua had just finished speaking when the corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked into a ridiculing arc. This was really amusing, to actually go this far to ask her. Pitifully, they still didn't know now the entire Southern Mountain were all Su Luo's. However, without waiting for Su Luo to speak, Lu Qingfeng on the side immediately followed to say furiously, "Loathsome girl, such great nerve, just based on your status, can also sit on this wall?" Su Luo couldn't help but feel this was laughable. Currently, she was this courtyard's real owner, and they still said she didn't even have the opportunity to sit at this end of the wall? This was really amusing. Su Luo also didn't tell them the actual situation. The corner of her eyes had a careless smile. "Oh, Why is it I can't sit on this end of the wall? Could it be that this belongs to your family residence? If it belonged to our family's residence, then you could still sit a little. But here is the corner of Lu Ruahua's mouth hooked into a ridiculing sneer. This is His Highness Prince Jin's courtyard. You behaving like this is simply courting death. Lu Ruahua thought Su Luo had stealthily snuck into the palace and would have a very guilty conscience. From the bottom of her heart, she believed that Su Luo would be afraid, but instead, she saw Su Luo was still sitting at the end of the wall, unperturbed. Her pair of legs was swinging back and forth. She looked extremely undisciplined. An angry expression flashed through her eyes. His Highness Prince Jin hated the most when other people touched his stuff. If he knew suddenly, Lu Ruahua's complexion darkened. It was because she suddenly recalled the buzz of news that spread throughout the capital about Su Qing and Su Luo's duel. At that time, His Highness Prince Jin led Su Luo by the hand to fly over. And that was on top of what she saw at the Sunset Mountain range. Su Luo looked at them with a ghost of a smile. Finally realized it after thinking it through? Lu Ruahua's face became cold. His Highness treats you pretty well, to actually bring you here. Both of Su Luo's hands were braced at the end of the wall, with her eyes lifted towards the east, gazing at the rising sun. Only after a long time did she carelessly cast a glance at them. Naturally, but unlike you guys. All said, you guys are still the children of influential family. To have no choice but to hide in the corner of someone else's wall to stealthily cultivate. Isn't it humiliating? Lu Ruahua was caught on the spot. Her face betrayed an embarrassed expression. With a stiff face, she unyieldingly said, "What do you know? This place has the most concentrated spiritual energy on the entire southern mountains. If we don't cultivate here, then where else would we cultivate?" Inside Su Luo's slender finger pointed to the position where the rock garden and the waterfall was. Lu Ruahua sneered tauntingly. "Are you deliberately trying to cause our death? His Highness Prince Jin's door. Is it for anyone who wants to enter, then can enter?" Su Luo spread out her hand. "It's me. Aren't I an example of wanting to enter and just entered?" It was merely a little courtyard. They would actually fear it this much. Really, weren't they making a big fuss over a minor issue? Was Nangong Luyan this scary? Why was it that in her eyes he was just like a never having grown up, rotten child that loved to act shamelessly and also throw tantrums? Su Luo's words were really infuriating, and her manner was also really annoying. Having heard what she said, immediately, Lu Ruahua was infuriated to the point of idiocy. "If I can let you guys come in, can you answer a question for me?" Su Luo smilingly watched Lu Ruahua. Since after returning from the Sunset Mountain range, she was always busy with all kinds of things. She actually delayed the most important thing. "You can let me in? Dream on." Lu Ruahua gave voice to a sneer. "You want to cause our deaths, then directly say so, don't hold back like this." "Hey, I say, why do you guys feel so inferior? Isn't it merely just entering a courtyard? How can it be related to a life and death situation?" Su Luo really could not understand. How could this courtyard have any relationship to a life and death situation? Feeling inferior? It's because you are too ignorant. Lu Ruahua glared at Su Luo. "You don't even know of His Highness Prince Jin's taboos. How did you live up till now at his side?" Chapter 584. The Deed to Southern Mountain 2. Taboo. Su Luo thought for a long time, and could not recall Nangong Luyan having some taboo on his body. Therefore, she once again studiously asked for instructions. "Dare I ask, what are the taboos on His Highness Prince Jin's body?" Su Luo expressed her curiosity. Why did she feel that Nangong Luyan's only taboo was when she said break up, these two words? "Since you don't know, why should I tell you? Isn't it much better for me to watch His Highness reject you?" Lu Ruahua was also honestly forthcoming. "Don't want to say, then don't say. Let's return to the main topic. If I can let you guys in, can you answer a question for me?" "Su Luo, are you really stupid or just faking being stupid? Do you know that the spiritual force here at Southern Mountain is the most concentrated in the entire capital? Do you know that His Highness Prince Jin's residence here has the most concentrated spirit force? Do you know how many people beg to enter and sit inside this residence? Lu Ruohua's words rushed out, continuous and endless. In that group of people there were royalty, lords, high-ranking officials and influential families, but His Highness didn't let a single one enter. Now you actually boast that you can let us enter? Who do you think you are? Really acting like a naive fool. Lu Ruohua issued a sneering sound and glanced towards Su Luo with contempt, her eyes filled with disdain. If I can prove it. Su Luo's smile was bright and shallow, seemingly extremely good-natured. You can prove it? Dream on. Lu Ruohua pulled at Lu Qingfeng to turn and leave. There were already noise of movements from inside. Presumably, Steward Wang of the residence was about to come out again to drive people away. Recalling how such good cultivation was interrupted by Su Luo, Lu Ruohua sent a fierce glare at Su Luo again. I really can prove it. Su Luo took out a piece of paper contract from her bosom area and waved it towards Lu Ruohua. Just based on this piece of waste paper? Lu Ruohua smiled coldly. Enough. If you can really prove it, then I will answer your question. Just at this critical time, the wooden door on the side, with a creaking sound, opened. A solemn face appeared in the doorway. Steward Wang. When Lu Ruohua saw him, immediately, she trembled in fear, turned around and just wanted to run. If she was caught, she would either be lightly reprimanded or heavily caned in reproach. Humph. Steward Wang didn't say much and sent her a glare. I told you guys not to come here, so as to avoid disturbing His Highness's cultivation. You guys have a lot of courage. Lu Ruohua's neck shrank back. When she saw Su Luo, suddenly, a bright idea struck her. She pointed to her and told on her to Steward Wang, using the trick to divert the source of calamity. Steward Wang, quickly look, she actually dares to sit on top of the wall. Quickly capture her as a warning to others. Even if she was someone His Highness Prince Jin brought over, she shouldn't be this unbridled, right? Humph. Su Luo, Steward Wang is stone-faced and very heartless. This time, see how you receive this move. Steward Wang followed Lu Ruohua's gaze and looked. He hazily saw a miss in a dancing dress sitting on top of the wall. He was just about to berate her when he clearly saw who it was. And immediately, a huge change occurred to his expression. One could only see him with his back lowered, quickly walking towards Su Luo. The corner of Lu Ruohua's lips contained a smile, her sinister and cold gaze staring at Su Luo. She was awaiting with bated breath at the scene Su Luo would be facing. However, the matter that astonished her just occurred so clearly in front of her face. One could see Steward Wang quickly walk in front of Su Luo, that straight back bent down by 90% in a bow, in a deferential salute with a fawning smiling expression. Prince, Miss Su Luo, it actually is you. Do you have any instructions? If you have any business, just tell me, the prince said. Your words are the most important, no one else's is above yours. If we can't complete your instructions, we would be beheaded. Steward Wang's manner was extremely respectful and sincere, as if the person in front of him was actually His Highness Prince Jin. Chapter 585. The Deed to Southern Mountain 3. Lu Ruohua stared at Steward Wang in shock, subconsciously taking a few steps back. The normally fiendish steward, his manner towards Su Luo was so good? Then, after she heard the steward's words, her entire person didn't feel so good. How was this possible? Absolutely impossible. It must be because she absorbed too much spirit force, and thus had a dizzy spell, creating a hallucination. Lu Ruohua pinched her own thigh. So painful. Now she became aware, as it turned out, everything was not a hallucination. All of this really was happening. Consequently, her gaze once again was cast towards Su Luo. Su Luo sat up high on the wall, and waved her hand carelessly towards Steward Wang. Nothing, you first go back in. If I have anything, I'll yell for you. Yes, if you have anything, just instruct me. This old servant will wait by the side of the door. Steward Wang, smiling obsequiously, said. Lu Ruohua stared blankly as Steward Wang quickly walked to the side of the door, then respectfully and sincerely waited there. Steward Wang, on this southern mountain, was a big shot. He was one that said one thing and meant just that. Even them, as children of influential family, must treat Steward Wang with respect. But now, he was so respectful and sincere to Su Luo. In the end, what problem occurred between this period? His Highness Prince Jin was really spoiling and indulgent towards Su Luo to this degree? Could it be His Highness Prince Jin's treatment towards Su Luo was not as simple as merely toying with her? Su Luo smiled tauntingly towards Lu Ruohua. The matter you just promised, you are not thinking of backing off now, right? Lu Ruohua indeed wanted to go back on the promise, but that also depended on if she had the guts. Under Steward Wang's attention, with his glare of a tiger watching his prey, Lu Ruohua squeezed out a stiff, forced smile from the corner of her mouth. How are you going to prove it? If she was really able to enter this courtyard to cultivate, then she had earned a profit in the end. Su Luo's such meticulous planning and careful accounting temper. How could she let her take some small advantages? One could only see her take out that deed from her sleeves and directly tossed it on Lu Ruohua's face. What is this stuff you dare? Before she could finish speaking, Lu Ruohua and Lu Qingfeng saw clearly the words on it, and at once, both of their faces had shocked expressions. The deed for the entire southern mountain? No, impossible. Lu Ruohua was dumbstruck and looked at the deed in her hand with disbelief. For a long time, she couldn't return to her senses. Southern Mountain, this was not merely a famous mountain. Exactly because the spirit force here was so concentrated, so over the years, everyone was paying attention to it. Every influential family fell over themselves to forcibly take it, until later, it ended up in His Highness Prince Jin's hand. Then the unrest stopped. It was said that the Crown Prince wanted to build a courtyard on Southern Mountain. Merely a small courtyard only that wouldn't take up too much space. However, His Highness Prince Jin didn't even raise his eyes before directly refusing. The refusal was direct and efficient. At the time, the Crown Prince nearly went insane from fury. Now on top of Southern Mountain, besides His Highness Prince Jin's residence, the rest of the few families had spent a huge amount to rent it from His Highness Prince Jin. That rent was so high as to be beyond reasonable limits, but everyone still scrabbled madly for it. But now this whole Southern Mountain had ended up in Su Luo, this loathsome girl's hand. This was impossible. Lu Ruohua thought about it left and right. No matter how she thought about it, she couldn't understand. Granted, even if His Highness Prince Jin spoiled Su Luo, it was still impossible for him to give the entire Southern Mountain to Su Luo, right? This was the entire Southern Mountain. If Lu Ruohua knew that His Highness Prince Jin had cheaply sold off the entire Southern Mountain for 49 green-colored crystal stones, don't know if she would faint from the shock. Su Luo stood in front of her, both hands crossed over her arms and lifted an eyebrow with a smile that was not quite a smile. What? Don't recognize words? Can't understand it? How did you accomplish this? Lu Ruohua glowered at her with wide-open eyes unwaveringly fixed upon Su Luo. Naturally, I bought it. Now it's my turn to ask you. Su Luo smilingly leaned close to her and muttered something into her ear. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.